Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. More breaking news this morning. The story from the CDC. U.S. vaccine advisors recommending to end the long-standing advice that all babies get a hepatitis B shot at birth. Now saying that not all babies need that shot shortly after they are born. We're continuing to follow this developing story, hoping to get someone to join us here today to talk about that and put that in perspective for us and give us a little bit more information. So I wanted to let you know that that story is on our radar. Certainly something big national news that impacts families all across the country here on this Friday morning. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer. We appreciate you joining us here live on Fox Local and on YouTube today. Shaping up to be a pretty busy Friday already. One of the stories that we are following up on today that we brought you as breaking news yesterday and also carried a live news conference, and that is the natural gas explosion in Eustace in Lake County that sent a person to the hospital. We now have some video that shows the moments that explosion happened, and you can see what it meant for that jewelry store that has been damaged. And Fox 35's Marley Capper was out at the scene again this morning, where it has been very active again today with investigators and crews still on the scene.
Good morning. We're here at Gemstone Jewelry Rocks in Eustace. You can see the building behind me has been boarded up after it exploded. We do know there was a gas leak in the downtown area yesterday, and crews have arrived this morning, and they look to be assessing the damage. They're taking pictures, hopefully continuing the investigation and finding out what exactly happened here. Take a look at the video again. You can see the bright orange ball that comes out of the windows and roof, and if you zoom in, you can even see glass shattering and going across the street. Eustace Fire Chief Michael Swanson says there was a natural gas leak underground near the intersection of South Eustace Street and Citrus Avenue. Swanson says before the explosion, the line was crimped to stop the leak. Here's what one witness had to say.
There was a tremendous boom. The building shook a little bit. We all jumped up and said, "What the heck was that?"
There was a woman and a dog inside the store at the time of the explosion. She and her clothes were burnt, and she was flown to a hospital. Her dog was hosed off as crews tried to cool it down. Now they're trying to figure out how this happened.
Makes this a little complicated for all of us is that the building actually doesn't have gas service to it that we know of.
Very curious. Chief Swanson also noting there was welding and soldering equipment in the back. Now we're still waiting to learn the updates on that woman and her dog, praying that they're both okay this morning. For now, reporting in Eustace, Marley Capper, Fox 35 News.
It's certainly a scary situation there and eye-opening to see the power of that explosion that happened certainly out of nowhere, especially after that gas line had been crimped. They believed that it had been turned off, but some clearly leaking before that explosion. And again, we did hear from the fire chief yesterday live here on Fox 35 News Plus and on Florida Live to talk more about that. There will certainly be some more questions about how that all happened moving forward. So that is a story that we are keeping a close eye on today. Also want to give you a live look right now. Today is day 5 of the Tommy Ziegler evidentiary hearing. He is the 80-year-old man who has been on death row for 50 years in connection with the Christmas Eve massacre. It's been called a quadruple murder at a Winter Garden furniture store back in 1975. This is his last chance at freedom. This is one of the prosecutors here who is questioning one of the witnesses on the stand. This is expected, I believe, to be the final day of this hearing. So let's go ahead and listen in here as this continues. To be honest, I'm not sure who may be on the stand or if we're hearing some sort of a statement at this point. But let's go ahead and listen in because this has been a case that we've been tracking throughout the week, a hearing that's been going on. Focusing on DNA evidence and retesting of some blood splatter and a number of other things as well. So let's go ahead and listen in for a few minutes here in Orange County.
Is relying on to suggest that, well, maybe Charles Mays might have touched the coat. We also heard testimony from Mr. Garcia. I mean, he's a restaurant manager, Your Honor. He hasn't been working in law enforcement for the past 8 years. And when he was working in law enforcement, he was working in a completely different agency, in a completely different region of the state, decades after this crime had been committed. So to the extent Your Honor wants to rely on him, we obviously have to take that into consideration. But obviously, Your Honor can form your own opinions about what Mr. Garcia said because you have the evidence in this case. Then we heard from Mr. Jellison, someone who's been telling a story for decades. You heard from that deposition. The story lives on in family lore, he said. But when it comes down to identifying the details about what happened, the identity of the person, how he knows they were gunshots, how he knows a police officer, how he knew what race of the person he saw was, no details. And how is this consistent with defense's theory again? Because again, keep in mind, gunshots, 1, 2, couple, don't know. But what Mr. Jellison said is there were gunshots fired after 9 p.m. And this was actually something that was litigated in front of the 11th Circuit. And the 11th Circuit pointed out, hey, that actually really contradicts the defense's theory as much as it does the state's. So it doesn't help Mr. Ziegler here. And Mr. Jellison himself said, regardless of how the defense wants to characterize Mr. Jellison, he's very clear. He didn't feel coerced. He didn't feel threatened. He didn't feel like he was being coached. He took what Mr. Bachman said about changing his story as a joke. So the defense's characterization of that evidence is completely inconsistent with reality. The other thing that's inconsistent with reality is what they're saying about Mr. Thomas. Now, you'll read in the deposition transcript that's in evidence, Your Honor, that Felton Thomas is a man who...
It does appear, I've not been able to get confirmation, but this certainly sounds like a closing argument being made by the prosecutor here right now. I've been trying to look back and see where things stand and if there were any further witnesses to be called, but it does sound like closing statements here today, and that would line up with the schedule that we had. It was expected to be a hearing that lasted through the end of the week. So we'll keep an eye on this and check back in just a little bit. We're going to take a break right now here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are continuing to follow up on the investigation into the death of Anna Kepner and this unrelated custody case involving her stepmother that is in some ways now tied to this because of the 16-year-old stepbrother of Anna Kepner being, according to court documents, the central suspect in her death. And we heard about that in a Brevard County courtroom earlier today. I want to bring in Fox 35's Esther Bauer, who joins us live now via Zoom. Esther, you were in that courtroom for that hearing today. in this custody dispute. What can you tell us about what happened in court?
So the hearing did not last very long. This started just after 9 a.m. and everything was wrapped up around 10:30, 10:45. We can say this was a win for Anna's stepmom, Chantel, because what her ex was trying to say is all these circumstances that happened on this cruise where 18-year-old Anna Kepner was found dead. Now her 16-year-old stepbrother is being investigated as a suspect in her murder. All this happened under mom's watch. So he was trying to get the other younger children out of the care of his mom. Now, a judge ultimately shot that down. These minor children will not be leaving their home in Titusville. So that's kind of why we were here. What was this custody hearing supposed to be about? But through all this and them trying to build their cases, we've now learned some more details about what was going on that cruise. So some pertinent points that we haven't known until just a few hours prior is that the parents did not see Anna. The last time they saw her was Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And we are told around 7 p.m. was the final time they saw the 16-year-old stepbrother. So 6:30 for Anna, just a half an hour later, that was the final time Anna's stepmom, Chantel, said while in court she saw both of those kids. Keep in mind, Anna was found the following day, the entire night hour, and then 11 a.m. is when that medical call came out. Anna was pronounced dead on the cruise ship 11/17. So we're getting just some more details of when were the children last seen by their parents. Also, there was conversation of what was the sleeping situation? Where were parents? Where were kids? The mother said that who they were booking this cruise with, their travel rep, suggested to them that they do the separate rooms. Mom and dad were staying, hallway was right here. All the three kids were staying in the room directly across from them. We confirmed ages, 18, 16, 14. 18-year-old was Anna. 16-year-old is the stepbrother that is currently being investigated for this alleged murder. 14-year-old was another child. And again, these are step siblings that were staying in that same room at the same time. The mother said during her time speaking to a judge that these kids did not have access to drinking. However, another witness was called. This was a stepmother of Chantel who said that she did see Chantel serving underage children liquor in an earlier time frame. So that was brought up. But again, Chantel immediately and has said from the beginning the kids were not drinking on this cruise. So those were some really big takeaways from what we learned. The family did leave the courthouse just a few minutes ago. We tried to ask them, I should say, how will they get justice for Anna? Do they know what happened on that cruise ship? The family had sunglasses on, both the ex-husband's side and Chantel and her current husband, which is Anna's dad, left without saying a word. So everyone has since departed from the courtroom. Something else we learned, which we've reported on, and early on in this, one of the first confirmations we had about Anna dying back in November was from her school, that Temple Christian school. We learned today during the court hearing the other minor children that were attending that school were unenrolled by the school. The school ultimately told the family there was too much media surrounding what had happened on that cruise ship. So they are now putting their other minor children in other school because the Christian school where Anna was attending and all the kids were going, told them they can no longer attend that school. So a lot of new developments. Again, this didn't go in the biological dad's favor. And again, this would be the biological dad of the suspect being investigated by the FBI because he wanted his other minor daughter to be immediately put in his hands, in his care. But we're also hearing mother testified that the 16-year-old stepbrother who's under investigation will not be allowed back into their home going forward. Her and Anna's dad, Chris, and there is no timeline. Again, no one's been arrested. No one's been charged for this. But she also did say At this time and going forward, they are not welcoming that child back into their home. That child is staying with a relative of the mom. And as we learned, the FBI has not told them when they would move forward, where things are, and what they're looking into. So, for the foreseeable future, this 16-year-old stepbrother of Anna will be staying somewhere else and will not be welcomed back into his parents' home, at least his mother's home, going forward.
Esther, when we spoke yesterday, we talked about the subpoena for Christopher Kepner, who is Anna's biological father, and you outlined the difficulties of the process server trying to get that subpoena to him. We talked about some of the questions of whether he might show up, whether he might be called to testify. Was he there today?
Christopher was there. Anna's dad was there. He walked hand in hand in with his wife. Chantel. He was in court, but he was not called to the stand. The judge only allowed 3 witnesses from the ex-husband's side to speak. She ultimately said, "I have heard enough. This does not rise to this. This does not rise to the fact where we need to immediately pull the other minor children out." But Anna's dad, Chris, was in court, did not have to speak, and also didn't say anything when he left with his wife.
It looked like there were quite a few people inside the courtroom. What was the scene like in there in the gallery?
So we do know that they had to move it to a larger courtroom because they were prepping for what was going to be a large turnout of media and other people that were going to be. The courtroom was not full, but what they did do is they wanted to bar any witnesses. There were several witnesses that were called, someone from DCF, someone from the Christian school, 2 people from the Christian school that we didn't hear from. All the witnesses were told to leave when every witness was called in. Both sides did not want other witnesses to hear what the other people were saying. So because of that, the courtroom was even more bare. There was a decent amount of media, but the courtroom was by no way full.
All right, interesting developments in this case as we also continue to learn more from these court documents as well in that case that have now confirmed her what is believed to be her cause of death and where her body was found on that cruise ship. So continuing to be just a sad story that we are following there. Fox 35's Esther Bauer, we appreciate you joining us and talking with us about this here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Want to get you back inside this court hearing, or this courtroom in Orange County. You see to the left a wheelchair, an oxygen tank, and the back of the head of Tommy Ziegler, 80 years old, the longest serving Florida death row inmate. He was convicted in a quadruple murder back in 1975 that happened on Christmas Eve. His execution has been delayed multiple times by appeals. And his defense team is trying to get that conviction that led to that death sentence overturned. Now, we're hearing from the prosecutor right now, who is speaking to the judge, delivering his closing statements in this. So let's go ahead and listen back in.
Hey, we want to test this shoe as well. That didn't happen here. And, given my motion in front of this court, I wish we could have tested more items. I wasn't involved in that. But the burden here is on the defense to prove their case. But I want to get back to Mr. Mays too, because this is important. For the past 50 years, Mr. Ziegler has been dragging Mr. Mays' name through the mud, such that two gentlemen who are here today, his sons, Pierre Mays and Napoleon Mays, have had to hear that their daddy could have been a killer. Their daddy could have been the one who did it. But what evidence do we have today that Charles Mays is the one who did it? If the defense's theory about spatter is correct, then that means we would expect to see the spatter of Eunice Ziegler and Virginia Edwards on Charles Mays' clothing. Because again, what they're trying to apply to Tommy Ziegler, if their theory is correct, should apply to Charles Mays. What do we have? Zero evidence of back spatter from any victim. Zero evidence of any DNA from Virginia Edwards. Zero evidence of any DNA from Eunice Ziegler. So where's the evidence that Mr. Mays actually did this? He didn't do this. We know he didn't do it, and we know he didn't do it because he was the victim of a brutal and savage murder. Now, what about the defense's supposition here about back spatter? It is very important that Mr. Eichenblum did concede error. The mechanism that the defense has been assuming for the deposition of back spatter onto clothing is completely wrong. The initial motion suggested that all of these wounds must have been inflicted at close range. You heard in the hearing today, these proceedings, there is no evidence, forensically or documented, to suggest that Ms. Ziegler was shot at close range. They've gone back and forth a bit about maybe there was spatter on that door that's consistent with the back spatter, but you heard from Ms. Cox. If it is true, and again, it's a little odd that we've got somebody hit in the occipital region of the head who would have to be facing back toward that door to then, after getting shot, spin, make 180 degrees, and fall back on the ground. That's what the defense's argument would have to be at trial if they're saying that is Eunice Ziegler's back spatter. But even if that were true, there's no evidence that this was at close range. And even if it was at close range, you heard what Ms. Cox said. The door would act as a shielding factor. So where's the evidence that there'd be an expectation of back spatter on Eunice Ziegler? As to Virginia Edwards, you heard testimony that, okay, there was actually stippling on Virginia Edwards' hands, and there was an injury to her index finger. Now, I don't know how Mr. Eichenblum thinks back spatter is deposited on people, but a finger is not going to produce back spatter. And if it's true that her hand was up by her head, he even admitted to me, the hand would act as a shielding factor. But more importantly, we saw the photographs of the clothing. We saw the photographs of the scene. There is no forensic evidence that supports the supposition there was significant back spatter deposited onto the scene. Yeah, sure, maybe there would have been a couple of misting stains you found in the coat, in the floor, but there's no evidence that there was close range spatter produced back onto the assailant. And we've already talked about Mr. Edwards, so I'm not going to go into this, but I do want to mention briefly before I run out of time, Your Honor, I want to be very clear. I am absolutely conceding that Mr. Egan did say in his opening statement and in his rebuttal argument that Perry Edwards fought for his life. In the closing rebuttal, you'll notice he said fought on the floor for his life, which Ms. Cox's testimony actually doesn't contradict that last point, because you heard her say.
Continuing to keep an eye on this hearing, I want to get you to see if we can hear from President Trump on the red carpet ahead of the FIFA World Cup draw. Let's listen in here.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So you hear the excitement from the president. You talk about the financial aspect of this. He said upwards of $30 billion could be pumped into the American economy. The FIFA president has said they've already.
All right, so a little difficult to hear now as he walks away. So we will get you back to this hearing that is going on right now in Orange County.
What Mr. Egan was referring to, but he did say multiple times Perry Edwards fought for his life. Fought for his life does imply a struggle, and I see why the Florida Supreme Court wrote their opinion the way they did, given the way Mr. Egan characterized the evidence. So,
are you conceding that he also implied in asking Mr. Ziegler, as if it were a fact, that Mr. Ziegler had held Mr. Perry Edwards under his left arm and beat, conceding that that happened?
in cross-examination, yes, Your Honor. And I am also conceding that the evidence probably doesn't bear that out. That's why I'm going back to the culpability standard. The question is, does this create a reasonable doubt as to the defendant's culpability? And given the strength of the evidence now, that we have very clear evidence that he was the one who beat Charles Mays to death, that it doesn't matter.
So is your argument that because, and I agree with you, the evidence establishes, and Mr. Eichenboom said that he's the one that beat Mr. Edwards and or Mr. Mays, and he's the one that shot him. So is your argument that because of that, therefore Mr. Ziegler is guilty of the other three murders?
Correct, because if he shot Charles Mays and if he beat Charles Mays, the entire testimony he gave at trial completely falls apart. Because what he said at trial was he was involved in some unknown altercation where there were assailants who were coming at him. He was bounced around the store, and they might have shoved him, and he maybe shot somebody with a .22, and maybe shot somebody with a .357 Magnum, and he might have hit somebody while he was swinging his Magnum around. There is no indication that he gave at trial that he was savagely beating anyone.
This evidentiary hearing continuing in Orange County right now. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us as we head deeper into this holiday season now that Thanksgiving has passed. A lot of eyes on a number of holiday events, and there is something going on just about everywhere this weekend, and that's just the start of it. So it is time for our Community Crossroads, and for that we're going to bring in Sarah Barkley and Ashley Edwards, our friends at UNation, and we really appreciate y'all joining us here this morning on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thank you so much, Garrett. Can I be so real with you and tell you how hard it was to narrow down just 3 top events this week for you guys? Because there are truly so many things happening this weekend here in Orlando.
Yeah, and Ashley, you were saying it's pretty much like every neighborhood has their own event going on.
Oh, truly, wherever you are, there's going to be a holiday pop-up happening. I literally have a list for you guys a little bit later in this update.
All right, so let's jump right in then and start with some of our highlights. And let's start with how the market stole Christmas.
Yeah, so that's happening Sunday. So make sure you have your plans ready for Saturday, but we got you covered for Sunday also, December 7th from 12 to 5 p.m. This is a Grinch-themed market. So if you love all things Grinch and Dr. Seuss, this is the market for you. It's going to be in Kissimmee, so a little bit further out from Orlando. But if you're on that side of town, this is the perfect market. There's always something going on around Orlando. And we know that a lot of people in Orlando are big market people. So this is going to be a lot of fun. They're going to have free admission, free parking, a DJ, raffles and giveaways, a ton of vendors with, of course, Grinch-inspired things, and they're gonna have food, snacks, and a lot to do. Definitely family friendly, perfect for kids, perfect for people of all ages. And if you need to get your last minute Christmas shopping done and you want to shop local, this is going to be the perfect spot to go and get those little niche gifts.
All right, and yeah, I kind of jumped out of order here because there is a big event going on tonight in Winter Park. We're talking about Winter on the Avenue. What should people know about that?
Yeah, so Winter on the Avenue is a festive holiday tradition right here in the heart of downtown Winter Park. It's family-friendly community event that brings Park Avenue to life with all of the twinkling lights, music, and honestly just holiday cheer for the entire family. It kicks off with their annual holiday tree lighting to start the night, followed just by a variety of entertainment and other seasonal surprises. Guests, you guys can enjoy some strolling carolers down Park Avenue, performances from children's choirs, a Hanukkah menorah lighting ceremony, and also snow slides, s'mores, and of course, a visit from Santa and Mrs. Claus herself. They'll be ready for photos and all of the holiday wishes. So again, that is tonight. So, start making those plans quick. From 5 to 9 p.m., Santa will start being there at 6:30. And as you're on Winter Park, there are truly so many great things happening on Park Avenue, from restaurants and other activities. So definitely, I highly recommend a restaurant like Wine Room is one of my favorite little before an activity thing with wine on tap. But if you also have little ones, maybe don't bring them to Wine Room, maybe bring them to places like Prado, Bosphorus. One of our favorites, Sarah Barkley can attest to this, is Ava Mediterranean for a really, really nice holiday dinner to really just tap in the entire holiday vibe while you're on Park Avenue.
Yeah, you might as well while you're there. There's a lot going on there. It's a fun place, a lot of good vibes there. I like the Wine Room as well. You can also probably knock out some holiday shopping while you're in the area.
Honestly, you really can with all the great local stores. One of my favorites does be Lululemon because it's right there on Park Avenue. I walk by every single time. But Writer's Block Bookshop is another really great locally owned indie bookstore that has a lot of really great options.
And if you're looking for something a little bit different this weekend, there's another fun event going on in the Milk District.
For any Orlandoan who is not ready to say goodbye to Halloween just quite yet, I get it. I'm right there with you. Krampus is coming to town. If you don't know about the legend of Krampus, Krampus is originally an Alpine folklore, and his whole gimmick is that he punishes misbehaving children during the Christmas season. So while Santa Claus gives gifts to the nice kids, Krampus, scares the little ones. So really talk about scaring your kids to get in line. So with that being said, this festival is really kind of horror, spooky themed. So it's a delightfully dark holiday festival, one of Orlando's biggest Krampus celebrations too, with live music, performances, a parade, and a massive market with plenty of local vendors. That just seems to be the theme of this weekend, is holiday shopping, markets, and local vendors. So we love that local love here in Orlando. Again, this is on Sunday, so it's going to be at the Plaza Live on Bumby Avenue. It is from 2 and 9 p.m. And yes, it's free to attend and family friendly. From 2 to 6, your kiddos are welcome. It's going to be lighthearted, spooky fun. But after 6 p.m., it will be 18 plus. So it's definitely getting the claws out at that time.
Sounds intense after 6 p.m., that's for sure. And in our local spotlight here, a fun Christmas holiday pop-up.
Yeah, so Mangoni Italian Market is located in downtown Winter Garden. So you can always stop by there and get some food. Downtown Winter Garden, first of all, is so stunning. They always decorate so well for Christmas. Mangoni has pizza, salads, holiday cocktails. I tried these cocktails. They are so good, and they're themed after your favorite nostalgic Christmas movie. The whole thing is themed by different movies. Each corner is a different one. So it's really fun to go and see what movies they have and kind of figure it out because they drop little hints here and there. Those gingerbread garlic knots that they just showed, they're red and green. They are so good. They actually did a Halloween pop-up and we had to go back for the Christmas one. There's live music, there's great food, and it does fill up pretty fast. So I highly recommend getting reservations ahead of time. It is a popular pop-up and it's one of the newer ones to do. So if you're in that area, definitely stop by, get a cocktail, bring the kids, get a mocktail. They had a great hot chocolate for kids. And honestly, I preferred that over the cocktail. It was really good hot chocolate. The snowman pizza was delicious. Okay, pepperonis, you have olives, you have the basil. It was everything. Oh, and fake snow. So if you're looking for fake snow, cute photo ops, this is the place to go.
Oh my gosh, it all looks so good, and the theming is top notch.
Yes, it is stunning. You have to check it out if you haven't.
So there is a lot to get to for folks to check out this weekend, Ashley and Sarah. And like you said, there are many more things that we weren't able to include on our list this week.
Oh, for sure. There's so much more. And guys, if you're local, obviously you're local to the area. Hi, Orlando. But in your local neighborhoods, we have like Avalon Park, Winter Garden, Soto, downtown, Hamlin, Lake Nona, and so many more neighborhoods are having their own special holiday events this week. So to learn all of the fun festive things you guys can do this holiday season, download the free YouNation app. Everything is right there at the touch of your fingertips. And you can make your weekend plans, your weeknight plans, all of your plans right there. And if you want to stay connected with us, I'm so sorry, Garrett. You can follow us on social media at Stuff to Do in Orlando.
All right, good to know because there is a lot of stuff to do, and we appreciate you joining us to break it all down for us and give us some of the highlights. Ashley Edwards, Sarah Barkley with YouNation. Always good talking with you, and thanks for joining us for our Community Crossroads today.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, we're getting ready to come back here.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It has been a busy morning already here, and we appreciate you joining us. It appears that the Ziegler hearing is either taking a break or something. I'm going to find out what happened there, and we will give you an update on that coming up in just a little bit to give you a little bit of a better idea of what's been going on with that. I know that's a case we've been tracking throughout the day, throughout the week, rather, since it began. So we will get you an update from that. I also want to let you know in about 10 minutes at the top of the hour, at noon, we are going to dive deeper into this hearing that happened in Brevard County today involving the stepmother of Anna Kepner in this child custody case that has really been the only source of many of our details in the investigation into the death of that Titusville teenager. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up in about 10 minutes. We are also getting closer to the FIFA World Cup draw that's happening around noon. We saw the arrival of President Trump, who is at that event that is going to be going on at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well and give you some updates from that event once it wraps up. Now, Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood was on Good Day Orlando this morning. He talked about some scam warnings and some ways to protect yourself, specifically after one case involving a DeLand woman who ended up being scammed out of $50,000, and it all started with an alert on her computer. Fox 35's Good Day Orlando had the chance to speak with Sheriff Chitwood earlier today about what to watch out for.
So this is an 85-year-old woman. Unfortunately, they target the elderly a lot. She gets a pop-up on her laptop. Then what happened?
She gets a pop-up that her computer has a virus in it. She then allows the person in the pop-up into her computer where he's able to access her bank funds. He then tells her he's going to deposit $50,000 into her checking account. She then needs to return that money to him. He explains everything to her, shows her bank receipts, tells her he's going to fix her computer. She goes to a bank, withdraws $20,000 in cash, and is told to meet him or an employee of his at the Winn-Dixie up the road from her house in DeLand, where she does. She hands $20,000 to a male who just appeared in the parking lot, and then the other $30,000 is siphoned out of her checking account. And it took her 2 days to call us because the bank alerted her that she was being scammed, and then I think she finally realized that and said, I better call the police.
It could have gotten worse. Where do things stand right now? I know you and your team can't wait to get this individual. Where does that investigation stand, and then how does she go about getting her money back?
Yeah, right now we are combing for all kind of video that's out there in and around the parking lot. There's legal process out now on where the account that the money was transferred into. You know, the sad part is that the banks and the internet, they don't exactly respond in a timely manner to our subpoena and warrants. So it's going to probably take 7 to 10 days to get that process back. But I have some really, really great fraud investigators who are tenacious. And I know we look at these victims like they're our parents or grandparents, that we're going to do everything we can to track these pieces of scum down.
Yeah, and people love that because they see that and they feel for her. It's put her in a bad spot as well. This is a unique one where they're kind of coming in through a pop-up that she probably didn't even realize was going to become a virus. What is your advice for people out there? Because these scammers, unfortunately, get a little trickier with what they try.
Yeah, and I say this all the time, you know, our older population, that's their connection to the outside world is that computer. And if they think it's going to go down, there's going to be a problem. If something like that happens, nobody does something out of the kindness of their heart. Unplug the computer, wait 5 minutes, plug it back in. If it continues, call us, because we would love to pose as you on your computer, especially in a case like that, and set up and take this piece of crap down when he's in the parking lot thinking he's going to get $20,000 from you.
So some strong words there from Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood talking about their efforts and what they want to see happen when it comes to those, because we know this is a time of year where a lot of people are targeted in scams like that. Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey was also on Good Day Orlando this morning. He talked about a drug bust that seized more than 90,000 pounds of drugs and explosives. 26-year-old Maxwell Horvath has been named the suspect in this, and Sheriff Ivey was on Good Day Orlando to talk more about that case.
I find this fascinating. Number one, he was very young. Number two, he's operating as a legitimate business, right? He even had a LinkedIn page. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so, in his mind, he was circumventing the laws in the state of Florida. As you know, Florida not long ago had done an emergency law where 7-0 was made illegal in the state of Florida. Illegal to manufacture, to sell, to distribute, all of those things. But in his mind, since he was shipping it out of the state, he thought he was circumventing the law. Well, trick or treat, he wasn't. Not to mention that he's a convicted felon. And he had 36 different firearms, several of which, as you said, were automatics. And then he had 50 pounds of precursors to make explosive devices and an explosive device. So he's going away for the rest of his life. This stuff's off the street. And, a lot of people have gun collections. That's great. I myself have gun collections. What I don't have are 50 pounds of precursors to make bombs, and I don't have automatic weapons when I'm not allowed to without having a tax stamp. So this guy was breaking the law in every aspect. Now he's locked up and going to hopefully spend the rest of his life in prison.
And not his first arrest, arrested at the first time when he was just 17 years old. You see a lot, right, in the course of what you have done as sheriff. Where does this rate in terms of what you have seen?
Well, as you said, 46 tons of the substance, and again, it was the 7-0 that's the illegal substance. The kratom in itself is not, but it's when it's extracted in the synthetic form. So, this ranks up there as you saw. It's the largest seizure in the history of the country, and then you see all the guns, the explosive devices, and our team's now trying to peel back the layers of this thing and see exactly what was going on, see who else was involved. This 26-year-old kid, I don't think, was involved by himself.
So let me ask you this. What do you think he was up to?
Well, I mean, clearly he was up to what seems to be the motivator in most crimes: greed and drugs. The guns, we're looking at. Obviously, he was arrested before back in 2017 for trafficking in MDMA, also for having an explosive device. So obviously he has some fascination with explosive devices. Whether or not he was shipping those out of the country for being used elsewhere, or whether he was planning for a war here, either way, our team's trying to look at it. And our team, all of the agencies, DEA, our agency, Palm Bay, everybody did a great job on this thing. I can't say enough about the agents that were out there actually doing the job on this.
No, they certainly did.
That was Sheriff Ivey joining Good Day Orlando earlier this morning. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll be back at the top of the hour. We're going to dive into the Anna Kepner case. So keep it here on Fox Local, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are taking an in-depth look right now at the Anna Kepner case, the investigation into the death of an 18-year-old from Titusville who was found dead last month on board a Carnival cruise ship. There have been few details released. The FBI has essentially said nothing in this, but we have learned from court documents filed in an unrelated family court case that Anna's 16-year-old stepbrother is the main suspect in this. And that family court case has really been the only source, as we have talked time and time again, really been the only source of information about this investigation. In fact, new documents that Fox 35 has obtained now detail that Anna Kepner died by asphyxiation and was found under the bed inside a room on that cruise ship. So we are continuing to get some more details about this case from that family court case, which is essentially a custody dispute following a divorce involving Anna Kepner's stepmother. Now, they were in court this morning and had some new details that came out of that and fleshed out a little bit more of what may or may not have happened on board that cruise ship. I'm going to bring in now Lauren Cadillac, who is an attorney out of Texas and has joined us for perspective and analysis on a number of cases before, an attorney and a legal expert. And Lauren, we appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lauren, I first want to start because, these are details, the new details we were able to confirm from these new court documents this week showing the cause of death. These are things that the medical examiner has not even released officially, even though we have asked time and time again. They're citing an ongoing investigation and saying they don't have to release these. But these are details that we're learning about a very serious criminal case in a civil court hearing, and we've talked before about how this is rather unusual.
Yeah, it's definitely the first time I've ever seen such a thing. However, and as unusual it does actually make sense. The way our government is structured, one hand does not necessarily communicate with the other. So the criminal investigation is an FBI investigation. It's a federal jurisdiction because it was on open waters in the sea, and it was an American citizen. And my understanding is that ship was flying the U.S. flag. So the FBI would have the criminal jurisdiction. And while your local medical examiner would follow what the FBI says, do not release this information, it's ongoing investigation, your local family courts have nothing to do with that and are completely separate from that investigation. And in fact, wouldn't even really consider that investigation in making their decisions. So it's strange, but it's not, it doesn't surprise me.
And there was an attempt for a gag order and to kind of seal this case from the public and from other things that would keep some of these details from coming out. We know the judge had previously denied that, and I would have to imagine that that was something the FBI probably wanted to see, because if they are staying quiet on this, it's clear they don't want a lot of information about this case coming out, at least not yet.
Well, that's true, but if the FBI really wanted that gag order, they would have had a Department of Justice attorney file a motion for it. So apparently they're not that concerned about the family law case. And maybe a reason for that is because this case involves minors. And when it comes to minors in the civil courts, they are highly protected. Divorce matters are often, in minor children. The children are often named by initial only. And a lot of details that relate to the child directly are not necessarily put into public documents. They're guarded because it is not of the best interest of a child to someday go for a job and have a potential employer find things that their parents said about them when they were 7 or 8. So it is quite possible that the FBI is certainly aware of that and how family courts operate in that sense. So it's quite possible that they're not as concerned because of that aspect.
This court hearing in Brevard County today It was open. We know they had moved it to a larger courtroom because of the interest in it, and it was. We heard it was essentially a hearing for the judge to decide whether to grant an emergency motion, essentially to remove one of the other minors, one of the other kids, from the custody of Anna's one of the parents out of the home, because of the concern about the 16-year-old stepbrother of Anna, who is considered to be the main and, as we have learned, only suspect in this case, that in the death investigation. And so I do want to note, I'm going to play a few clips here, but we're going to start with the opening statements from the attorneys. One of the attorneys is representing Anna's stepmother, and the other attorney is representing Anna's stepmother's ex-husband. So no relation to Anna, and that's where this gets a little bit, convoluted. But I do want to warn folks too, because we were not able to live stream the hearing, so we have gone back and edited this, and we have taken great care to edit out the names of those minor children who were named, because obviously that is something that we will not do. And so there will be some times where it may not exactly be clear who the judge and the others are referring to. And then there are times that it will be clear that they are referring to the unnamed 16-year-old who is the suspect. So I just want to give that kind of preface before we start playing the clip here. But I'm going to start, Lauren, by showing the opening statement. We're going to hear from the judge who talked about kind of what we're hearing in this case, and then the opening statements from each of the attorneys on both sides of this former marriage as they go through this custody dispute. So again, this happened just a little bit ago in Brevard County.
I reviewed the emergency motion for temporary relief, Mr. Smith, and it does appear as though a lot of the allegations alleged within that motion are really in the nature of contempt. I know that there is a contempt proceeding, a contempt hearing being held on December the 17th, I believe, before Magistrate Valentine. The court's purpose in the hearing today is only to address the issues as it relates to an emergency. So as I'm looking at the motion, the paragraph specifically that the court will address would be related to paragraph 7. The 16-year-old child is now a suspect in the death of the stepchild during the cruise. While released from custody, the 16-year-old child is residing with a third party. Paragraph 17, the 16-year-old's future has been put in jeopardy because of the choices made by the respondent. And paragraph 19, and most importantly, the youngest child is at immediate risk of abuse, abandonment, or neglect in the care of the respondent. So those are the issues that the court is going to address here this morning, is whether or not, in fact, the court needs to take some sort of emergency action based on those allegations contained within the motion. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Smith, you may begin with opening.
Your Honor, in this case, obviously, it's our position that the youngest child is at risk for a number of reasons. As the court is aware through the pleadings, there's a young lady who's passed away. That matter is still under investigation. That was not my client's child, but the stepchild of the mother in this case, and the remaining 16-year-old is now a suspect in that case. In this case, the mother took the children, both again, on a cruise against my client's wishes, while preventing him from having regular contact with those children. We believe that the arrangements that were made by the mother as far as the sleeping arrangements were insufficient, that the 18-year-old, the 16-year-old, and another 14-year-old were all placed in the same stateroom. There's indications that they may have, because they were in international waters, may have been engaging in activities that they normally couldn't engage in while they were in the United States properly being supervised. In addition, we will present evidence that through the older child who's now 18, so he's an adult, but he is the son of the parties, as to violence, alcohol use in the past, and he's been living with his father for approximately almost 2 years now, since these parties had their separation, where, as the court is aware, there was an original divorce case, there was parenting time, both parties were in Hernando County, then the mother relocated by agreement between the parties over to Titusville. Since she relocated to Titusville, that's when the problems have occurred, where the father has been very limited in his access to the children. I'd reserve with regard to any other comments until closing.
Well, let me ask you this question, Mr. Smith. If the oldest child has been residing with the respondent for 2 years, and this I mean, I understand, I saw that there is a supplemental petition for modification that's also pending, so that would be an ultimate issue for trial. How would this, is it your intention to have the oldest child testify?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what if has the oldest child had any contact with the 2 other children or the respondent since he's been living with the petitioner for the last 2 years?
Well, one of the main things is the circumstances where he wound up living with my client. There was a physical altercation.
That would have been 2 years ago, correct?
A year and a half, yes, Your Honor. And he was also allowed to drink alcohol, which again I think goes to the relevancy of whether these children whether the mother in this case encouraged the underage alcohol, especially on the cruise ship. And the violence that, I mean, this, again, the allegations are this 18-year-old has passed away in a violent manner. The 18-year-old will testify as that there was violence between himself, his mother, and the stepfather. And he has had recent contact with, and I think that goes to the whether there's any risk to returning to the father. The child was allowed finally to come over for a Thanksgiving visit.
The child being, okay.
She was restricted from contact with the one that there are allegations against, but did have contact with Andrew, her adult brother, and exhibited no fear, no reservations. Both my client as well as the 18-year-old can testify about that.
Well, remember though, this isn't we're here on an emergency motion, so this isn't an issue as to where it is in the best interest of the minor children to reside. I mean, that is ultimately an issue for trial in the modification action. The only issue that we're here to address today is whether or not is in imminent danger remaining in the petitioner's care as a result of recent incidents. So that's really primarily the court's concern today.
Well, and Your Honor, I understand that position, and certainly whether or not the child's to be removed from the mother is whether or not there's an imminent risk to the child. I think the court also has to look at where the child would be placed and the circumstances there as to whether there's any harm to relocating the child. I think you have to, in terms of emergency relief and an injunction, essentially, you have to look at.
I think you're looking at two different things. This isn't an injunctive relief. I mean, you're not here seeking injunctive relief. I mean, that would have been in the injunction court, correct?
Well, we're seeking to have the child removed from the mother and placed with the father. So I think that the court needs to look at whether or not there would be any harm to that. Obviously, our position is there wouldn't be, that she'd be able to transition to the father fine.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree with your argument, Mr. Smith, but I understand what your argument is. Okay. Ms. Anderson, opening?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. We believe, and I think we filed that in our response, that there's no emergency that exists. There was an incident on the cruise ship. The Federal Bureau of Investigations is investigating that. There have been no arrests made yet, but since my clients were advised that the was a suspect in that. After he was released from the hospital upon the return to the United States, he was placed with a relative of the mother's. And not only did that happen, but mom contacted dad, and dad signed an agreement to say that this child would be placed with a third party, thereby removing any risk of any danger to any of the other children in the home. So that has been resolved, and there's been nothing mentioned of that. Nobody's saying, I don't hear the other side saying that they participated in that in any way, whereas the father was advised and did participate. The minor child, you're going to hear testimony that she's fine, that there is no risk to her. There were abuse reports made. We have a person here from the Department of Children and Families that can attest that there's no concerns about the child remaining in the care of Chantel and Chris Kepner.
All right, thank you.
So that was of the opening statements from both attorneys, and Lauren Cadillac, an attorney and a legal analyst, joining me now to talk a little bit about this. And we heard the judge kind of really making it clear that this was all about the emergency motion to remove this other minor child from the mother, who is also Anna Kepner's stepmother, and placing it with the father. And we heard some back and forth between the judge and one of the attorneys. Did anything stand out to you there, Lauren, from what we heard?
It did. In fact, I wrote a note that the ex-husband's attorney seems a bit confused about the types of relief and the types of motions. For instance, in the very beginning, the judge said, I'm only going to look at these 3 or 4 items because the rest is a contempt and held in a contempt motion that's already set. Contempt is when there's a court order and it orders you to do something and you don't. And so there is an argument coming from the husband that this Anna Kepner's stepmom was not following the court order, the divorce decree. So that's one hearing, and that's going to have one set of relief. Usually that relief is not going to be to remove the children. It's going to be to slap mom's hand, maybe some sanctions, something to teach her, follow the rules here. Then there is another type of relief, which is injunctive relief. A lot of folks have heard of a restraining order. We think about them with like a stalker or someone like that. Injunctive relief is a restraining order. It restrains someone from doing something temporarily. In Texas, injunctive relief only lasts 14 days, and then you have to go back and obtain a more permanent injunction. Then finally, there's removal. So when we're talking about family law and we're talking about children, removal means taking the children from the home they're in, right? To give rise to removal, and I know you heard them say this, there has to be imminent risk. One example I could think of, maybe a city code inspector comes to a house and sees that it's a hoarder house and it's a huge danger for the children living inside of it. That's an imminent risk. That is an immediate possible harm to the children, and that could give rise to removal, depending on the circumstances, of course. What the stepmother's attorney said is facts. It's true. There is no emergency, right? The emergency happened back on the high seas. And she mentioned that this father had signed an agreement to put the 16-year-old, who is the suspect, in someone else's care. So there's no removal for that 16-year-old. And then that leaves the 8-year-old. And there's very little evidence that she could possibly be harmed, particularly because the person being accused of harming someone else has been removed. So this judge is only going to be looking at today evidence that shows there is an imminent risk to the 8 or 9-year-old child that remains in the home.
Yeah, 9 years old, I believe. And the judge ended up denying that that motion for the emergency motion, but not before we heard testimony from Anna Kepner's stepmother, who talked more about the cruise ship, some of the arrangements on it, and the last time that she saw Anna Kepner and the 16-year-old stepbrother, who is the suspect in this case. So we're going to take a break here on Fox Local and YouTube. When we come back, we will dive into that, and you'll get to hear some of her testimony. So keep it right here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we'll be right back. Testify.
Interesting. So he didn't accept the subpoena, but he followed it anyhow?
I guess. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and we appreciate you joining us as we take you through some of what happened in court today in this unrelated family court issue, a custody dispute, where we have been learning more about the death of Anna Kepner. I want to bring in attorney Lauren Cadillac, who's unaffiliated with this case. She's an attorney out of Texas. She's a legal analyst and expert for us, and joins us now here on Fox 35 News Plus. And Lauren, we appreciate you joining us. Some interesting things that we're seeing come out of this hearing today.
Yes, absolutely. It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me. This case has really reeled me in, especially with this family law aspect that we don't usually see. So I'm happy to be here.
And we did hear a testimony earlier today from Chantel Kepner, who is the stepmother of Anna Kepner, the 18-year-old who was found dead on board that cruise ship. I'm not playing all of her testimony. We did cut out parts of it that were not quite as relevant. And we also cut out, obviously, parts where she mentions names of other minor children. But you're going to hear most of her testimony here, where she talked about some of what happened on the cruise, some of the arrangements on the for the sleeping arrangements on the cabin, and she also discusses the last time that she saw Anna Kepner. And here is that testimony from that courtroom in Brevard County earlier today.
No, I have not. If I could get you to raise your right hand for me, please, ma'am. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may inquire whenever you're ready, Mr. Smith.
Please state your name, ma'am.
Chantal Kepner.
And do you know Thomas Hudson?
Yes.
And how do you know Mr. Hudson?
We were formerly married.
And how long were you married?
About 12 years.
And do you have any children between the two of you?
We have 3 children.
What are their names and ages? And there recently was did you recently go on a cruise?
Yes.
And did any of the children go with you on the cruise? Did you reach out to Mr. Hudson to request that he agree to passports for the children?
I reached out to him to inform him of my itinerary to take the children on a cruise and did ask for the passports, but they weren't needed in this cruise.
And Mr. Hudson actually refused to cooperate with obtaining passports, correct?
To sign for the passports, yes.
You said passports weren't necessary, so they weren't obtained?
Correct.
As far as the minor children, what were the sleeping arrangements on this cruise?
Was in my room with my husband and his 9-year-old daughter, and then shared a room with his stepsister and stepbrother. The room was directly across from ours.
What was the stepsister's name?
Anna Kepner.
And what was the stepbrother's name? And how old is?
14.
And how old was Anna?
18.
Now, who made the decision to have these 3 teenagers in one room in the cruise?
We had talked it over with our travel agent, and that was what was suggested.
Did you have to sign any special permission for the children to reside together? So was it a mutual decision between yourself and your husband?
Correct.
And at some point, did you discover that one of the children had passed away?
Yes.
And when was that you discovered that?
Friday morning.
When was the last time that you had seen the child before that Friday morning?
Thursday night.
You know approximately what time?
Right around 6:30.
And your child, did you see him that Thursday night as well?
Yes.
What time did you see him at?
Closer to 7. Just a little bit before 7.
What was he doing at that time?
He was headed back to his room.
Do you know whether or not he was present in the room as well?
They all were headed back to their room, as far as I know.
So where was their room in relation to your room?
Right across the hall. You walked out my door, their door was right in front of it.
Did you return to your room that evening?
Yes.
What time did you return to your room?
7 o'clock.
7 p.m.?
Yeah, right. It was actually closer to 7:30.
Did you stay in the room for the rest of the night?
Yes.
With the teenagers across the hall, did you ever go in and check on them?
No, I had went to sleep.
Do you know if Christopher went across the hall to check on them?
Not that I know of.
Do you know if he ever left the room that night on that Thursday night?
I never seen him leave the room.
As far as goes, have you made arrangements for to reside with a relative?
Correct.
And why did you do that?
It was something that his father and I mutually decided.
Did you suggest it to him, or did he suggest it to you? Who brought it up first?
It was something that we had talked about because neither one of us could bring it back to our home.
Why couldn't you bring back to your home?
Looking out for the safety of the other children in the home.
Now, when you talk about the home, you have a home with Christopher, your husband?
Yes.
And does Christopher have other children that come to that home?
He has 2 other kids.
And one of them being?
Correct.
And the younger child that slept in the room with you as well?
Yes.
Is Christopher still allowed to come to the home?
Yes.
How many bedrooms is the home that you're in?
We have a 3-bedroom house with an addition room downstairs.
So what are the sleeping arrangements when all the kids were there prior to this cruise?
The 2 youngest girls shared a room, the 2 boys shared a room, and Anna had her own room.
As far as the evening, that Thursday evening on the cruise, had you been drinking at all?
No.
Had you drank it all during the cruise?
I had 2 pina coladas and a blue Hawaiian earlier in the week, but it wasn't on the same day. It was like 1 a day.
Do you know if the children, based on being in international waters, could I drink alcohol?
No.
You don't know?
No, they didn't. They're not old enough.
What about Anna?
I don't know.
Weren't you aware that the children were gambling at some point?
Well, Anna's 18, so I know she was in there at one point in time, but the other kids were not.
You're sure that the other kids were not gambling?
I'm sure the other kids were not gambling.
As far as does he have any diagnoses?
He has ADHD.
No further questions from you.
Thank you, sir. Cross?
Morning.
Morning.
Ms. Kepner, who all went on the cruise with you?
Myself, my husband, Anna, the 2 youngest girls, and then my mother-in-law and father-in-law.
What are their names?
Jeff and Barbara Kepner.
And where was their room in relationship to where your room and the children's room was?
2 floors above us.
Did they also help in the supervision of the children?
Yes, ma'am.
Anna, who we know passed away, she was 18, correct?
Correct.
And she was an adult?
Correct.
And was she given the option of staying in another room?
All 3 of the kids were.
Okay. And would that room have been with Grandma and Grandpa?
Correct.
Okay. And they didn't want to do that?
No, they wanted to stay together.
Did they all get along?
Yeah, the 3 of them are like the 3 amigos. They're best friends.
Okay. And with regard to, I know you were questioned about him. He's not a suspect, or you haven't been advised by anyone?
Correct. He's not a suspect.
as far as you know, is the only suspect in the death of Anna, your son?
Correct.
So that was from the Chantel Kepner testimony. And Lauren, it was interesting to hear her describe the dynamic between the three who were staying in the room there, saying they were best friends and the three amigos, and yet one of them is now dead and one of the others considered the prime suspect in this case.
Yeah, I definitely smirked at that response. Some best friends, right? If those are your best friends, stay away from them. What really, really strikes me is that they allowed these kids to stay in the same room. I understand that, this is what the kids wanted, but parents have a responsibility to make adult choices on behalf of their children, whether or not their children want that, right? Like, that is our role. And there's no world where I can imagine this sleeping arrangement. You've got the 2 9-year-olds with the parents. You've got this mixed gender teenage room. And then to find out you had grandparents that Anna could have stayed with and potentially prevented all of this, it's pretty odd and definitely alarming as a mom. But it does not give rise in the civil court, in the family court, to an emergency. It was an emergency on the boat, but it is no longer an emergency since they are no longer on the cruise ship. And she specifically said that they had the 16-year-old go be with other family for the safety of the children in the home. Another thing she said that really struck me was that she discovered Anna was deceased on Friday morning. Now, my understanding from the reports was that there was a huge search of the ship, and it wasn't until late morning, early afternoon that she was found to have been deceased. So that begs the question, how did she know before everyone else did?
We certainly still have a lot of questions about the investigation because, like we had pointed out before, this was not a hearing in the criminal case, but they're looking at very specific kind of issues that are really only looking at certain aspects of this case in a tangential kind of way and fashion, where we're getting just some of these details.
Yes, this is obviously limited in scope to the immediate safety of the children in the home. And overall, it appears that a spiteful father is taking advantage of someone's loss of life to try to get back, so to speak, to a mother. And maybe he's not happy with their parenting, and I understand that, but does that give a rise to an emergency in this situation? I do not believe so. And I kind of see it as a selfish move on the dad's part, really with complete disregard for this victim. And the fact that, his own children now have to come to grips with a sibling that may have taken a step sibling's life. And I don't love it from him. And I certainly don't love the decisions the mom made, but I think this is the wrong avenue to pursue remediating that.
And we don't necessarily know the motivations, but we do know the outcome, and that is that the judge agreed that this did not rise to an emergency and denied that. Now, before we go to break here, I do want to mention that we did hear testimony from a couple of other people, including the adult son, who talked a little bit about some of the dynamics, and I don't have that clipped, but Lauren, you said that could also be potentially relevant in something like this.
Yeah, at the very minimum, it's going to give us some insight into what that household looked like, the Kepner household, and potentially even why the mom would make a decision to, allow the sharing of the room. And potentially, if she is in fact the type of mom that would allow alcohol to be consumed by minors, and that could show maybe why this young man is being accused of this crime. Potentially the household, there's issues in the household that could lead to this. It would be quite insightful, though it wouldn't show us any facts from the actual day of the crime. To your point, it would really just give us an interesting background on possibly how this family has a son that is 16 that is accused of something so gross.
Would that be testimony that could be relevant or included in criminal proceedings, or would that not be allowed? What do you think?
I could definitely see it, certainly in terms of a defense. If it shows that this home is tumultuous or something, that could be part of a very good defense. And every court record is an open and public record, and every court record is allowed into a new court, right? So there's no expiration date. These are official court records. The criminal attorneys can order them, pay for them, and use them in their trial and their prosecution of the young man.
Well, Lauren Cadillac, attorney and legal expert and analyst, we appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to take a break, but we'll be right back with more coverage after this. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. And we're continuing to take a look at this case in Brevard County earlier today that is in some ways tied to the investigation into the death of Anna Kepner, the Titusville teenager found dead on board the Carnival cruise ship last month. And I want to play for you as we hear from the judge making her decision or announcing her decision to deny that emergency motion to remove one of the other minor children from the custody of Anna's stepmother and place her with her biological father. You'll hear a little bit from the judge about the reasoning. They'll also talk more about the 16-year-old who is the suspect in connection with Anna's death. Staying somewhere else right now and not staying with the family.
The issue for this court today is whether or not the children in this case are in imminent danger. And I've heard lots of testimony with regard to what happened back in 2024, what happened on the West Coast. But other than the incident that happened on the cruise, I've heard nothing to indicate that there is an imminent danger or harm at this time. How long is expected to remain with the relative?
At this point, we're not sure. We're not sure what the FBI is going to do, whether he's going to be charged federally or whether they're going to turn it over to the state. My client is waiting to hear on that. They're also waiting on some testing results. They've done a bunch of psychological testing and psychiatric testing, so they're also waiting to hear about that. And so they don't know at this time how long the child is going to be at her relative's house.
Is there any expectation that he will be coming back to Titusville in the near future?
No.
Okay. All right. Then, based on the evidence that's been presented today, I don't find that there is an emergency and that there isn't any imminent risk of harm. I understand that there may be some issues with regard to contempt. I understand that there is a hearing pending on December the 17th before Magistrate Valentin as it relates to the motion for contempt, and I believe an amended motion for contempt has been filed as well. But for my purposes, the only thing that the court was here to hear this morning is the emergency motion for temporary relief, most specifically as to paragraph 17 or 19, when it says the youngest child is at immediate risk of abuse, abandonment, or neglect in the care of the respondent. The court has not heard anything to indicate that there is an imminent risk to. Now, certainly, if there was a situation where he was returned to the home and is in the home with, that may be another basis to for a motion to be brought at that time. But so long as he is no longer in the home, I don't see that there would be any risk. So I am, yes, sir. I hear you, Mr. Smith.
I actually didn't say anything yet.
Okay, I look like you're about to. So I am going to deny the emergency motion for temporary relief. I will prepare a written order, and I will have that order filed, I would anticipate, by Monday or Tuesday of next week. All right, that concludes the proceedings. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So that was the judge's decision. You heard a little bit more about that. And then the hearing coming to an end in Brevard County earlier today. Going to take one more quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. When we come back, going to play for you my conversation with Fox 35's Esther Bauer, who was live inside that courtroom. So keep it right here on Fox Local and YouTube, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon. Fox 35's Esther Bauer was in the courtroom for that hearing today, one of several members of the media attending that hearing to see what new details came out about the case involving the death of Anna Kepner. Had the chance to speak with Esther about what happened inside the courtroom and some of the interactions outside the courtroom with the family members as they left.
So the hearing did not last very long. This started just after 9 a.m. and everything was wrapped up around 10:30, 10:45. We can say this was a win for Anna's stepmom, Chantel, because what her ex was trying to say is all these circumstances that happened on this cruise where 18-year-old Anna Kepner was found dead. Now her 16-year-old stepbrother is being investigated as a suspect in her murder. All this happened under mom's watch. So he was trying to get the other younger children out of the care of his mom. Now, a judge ultimately shot that down. These minor children will not be leaving their home in Titusville. So that's kind of why we were here. What was this custody hearing supposed to be about? But through all this and them trying to build their cases, we've now learned some more details about what was going on that cruise. So some pertinent points that we haven't known until just a few hours prior is that the parents did not see Anna. The last time they saw her was Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And we are told around 7 p.m. was the final time they saw the 16-year-old stepbrother. So 6:30 for Anna, just a half an hour later, that was the final time Anna's stepmom, Chantel, said while in court she saw both of those kids. Keep in mind, Anna was found the following day, the entire night hour, and then 11 a.m. is when that medical call came out. Anna was pronounced dead on the cruise ship 11/17. So we're getting just some more details of when were the children last seen by their parents. Also, there was conversation of what was the sleeping situation? Where were parents? Where were kids? The mother said that who they were booking this cruise with, their travel rep, suggested to them that they do the separate rooms. Mom and dad were staying, hallway was right here. All the three kids were staying in the room directly across from them. We confirmed ages, 18, 16, 14. 18-year-old was Anna. 16-year-old is the stepbrother that is currently being investigated for this alleged murder. 14-year-old was another child. And again, these are step siblings that were staying in that same room at the same time. The mother said during her time speaking to a judge that these kids did not have access to drinking. However, another witness was called. This was a stepmother of Chantel who said that she did see Chantel serving underage children liquor in an earlier time frame. So that was brought up. But again, Chantel immediately and has said from the beginning the kids were not drinking on this cruise. So those were some really big takeaways from what we learned. The family did leave the courthouse just a few minutes ago. We tried to ask them, I should say, how will they get justice for Anna? Do they know what happened on that cruise ship? The family had sunglasses on, both the ex-husband's side and Chantel and her current husband, which is Anna's dad, left without saying a word. So everyone has since departed from the courtroom. Something else we learned, which we've reported on, and early on in this, one of the first confirmations we had about Anna dying back in November was from her school, that Temple Christian school. We learned today during the court hearing the other minor children that were attending that school were unenrolled by the school. The school ultimately told the family there was too much media surrounding what had happened on that cruise ship. So they are now putting their other minor children in other school because the Christian school where Anna was attending and all the kids were going, told them they can no longer attend that school. So a lot of new developments. Again, this didn't go in the biological dad's favor. And again, this would be the biological dad of the suspect being investigated by the FBI because he wanted his other minor daughter to be immediately put in his hands, in his care. But we're also hearing mother testified that the 16-year-old stepbrother who's under investigation will not be allowed back into their home going forward. Her and Anna's dad, Chris, and there is no timeline. Again, no one's been arrested, no one's been charged for this, but she also did say at this time and going forward, they are not welcoming that child back into their home. That child is staying with a relative of the mom. And as we learned, the FBI has not told them when they would move forward, where things are, and what they're looking into. So for the foreseeable future, this 16-year-old stepbrother of Anna will be staying somewhere else and will not be welcomed back into his parents' home, at least his mother's home, going forward.
Esther, when we spoke yesterday, we talked about the subpoena for Christopher Kepner, who is Anna's biological father, and you outlined the difficulties of the process server trying to get that subpoena to him. We talked about some of the questions of whether he might show up, whether he might be called to testify. Was he there today?
Christopher was there. Anna's dad was there. He walked hand in hand in with his wife, Chantel. He was in court, but he was not called to the stand. The judge only allowed 3 witnesses from the ex-husband's side to speak. She ultimately said, "I have heard enough. This does not rise to this. This does not rise to the fact where we need to immediately pull the other minor children out." But Anna's dad, Chris, was in court, did not have to speak, and also didn't say anything when he left with his wife.
It looked like there were quite a few people inside the courtroom. What was the scene like in there in the gallery?
So we do know that they had to move it to a larger courtroom because they were prepping for what was going to be a large turnout of media and other people that were going to be. The courtroom was not full, but what they did do is they wanted to bar any witnesses. There were several witnesses that were called, someone from DCF, someone from the Christian school, 2 people from the Christian school that we didn't hear from. All the witnesses were told to leave when every witness was called in. Both sides did not want other witnesses to hear what the other people were saying. So because of that, the courtroom was even more bare. There was a decent amount of media, but the courtroom was by no way full.
Fox 35's Esther Bauer inside that courtroom for our coverage. We'll have more coming up later on Fox Local and on Fox 35 News at 5 and 6. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus. Our coverage continues next on Fox Local.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. For the last hour, we took an extended look on the Anna Kepner case, and if you were watching that, we appreciate you staying with us here on Fox 35 News Plus as we now shift to some other news around the area. Fox 35's Amy Caulfield had the chance earlier to speak with Kat Cammack, a congresswoman from Florida, Republican from Central Florida here, who they talked about a number of political topics, including immigration, specifically what the federal government can do about it. They also talked about a number of other topics, including birth rates and a number of other things when it comes to migration and population issues here in the United States. So this is the conversation earlier with Congresswoman Kat Cammack and Fox 35's Amy Caulfield on Good Day Orlando.
So let's talk a little bit about this push to remove people in this country who could potentially pose a danger to others, as did this man who is going to go on trial for shooting 2 U.S. National Guard members.
Well, first, our hearts absolutely break for the families of these 2 National Guardsmen. I mean, one who is still currently fighting for his life, the other who she tragically lost her life. And honestly, this is just something that so many Angel families around the country have been contending with, people who are in this country who should have never been here in the first place. And as we speak specifically about this situation with an Afghan national, the vetting standards were lowered, and I can speak to exactly how they were and how it put Americans in danger. When I was visiting our troops over the Christmas holiday a couple years ago, I stopped at what is called some of our lily pads, where they do some pre-vetting and vetting of individuals. The folks on the ground representing the United States were telling me that there was missing paperwork, that they had been given instructions to basically just push people through. And when pushed, I said, well, doesn't this create national security risks? And they said, listen, we don't ask questions, we just check boxes. And to me, that is a slap in the face to every single American, because at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the United States government to ensure our national defense. And we have let in millions of unvetted people, which have posed a real security threat to our communities and to our country.
Well, Congresswoman, I know that you see these headlines daily of, people who are anti-ICE and anti what the president is trying to do. So how do you balance that with keeping people safe?
Well, and the thing that's really frustrating is that these ICE agents, they are not only trying to do their job and achieve the mission of getting people out of the country who should have never been here in the first place. Keep in mind, under the last administration, we saw over 10 million people in this country who had no vetting, no background checks, and they had been, quote unquote, paroled into the country with full benefits. In many cases, many more benefits than, say, our veterans who serve this country. It's incredibly frustrating that these ICE agents, who are just trying to accomplish the mission of keeping the community safe, are now becoming victims and targets of violence themselves. So I think there's a balance to be made. If you want to come to this country, do it legally, and we need to make sure that we're putting Americans first. And I think that's why President Trump has overwhelming support for the America First agenda.
You've also talked a lot about there are the number of foreign-born people living here in the U.S. Those numbers are growing exponentially. What are those numbers, and why does that concern you?
Well, when you look at 1 in 6 of people in the country today are foreign born, you have to really kind of project out in the future and say, well, this really isn't sustainable in terms of adopting and assimilating into Western culture. We never used to have people who would be waving foreign flags and, press 2 for Arabic and all of these things that are fundamentally changing everyday life here in America. That to me is really troubling, because that was the beauty of America. Come from any nook and cranny of the world, but it was because of the opportunity that America represented. And instead of adopting the American culture and the culture of the West, you have people who are bringing their culture with them. In many cases, Sharia law. They want to do things that are completely in juxtaposition with American culture, and it's just not a good fit. And so I think if people want to come here, they need to assimilate. They need to speak English. They need to embrace America, and that includes our flag. But the notion notion that we're going to have people who want to import the culture from which they are escaping from, in many cases, socialist and communist regimes, that's just absolutely absurd. And we're seeing in Minnesota that playing out right now, the fraud, the abuse, and in many cases, the culture that is oppressive to women and children. And we're seeing a lot of victims as a result. So this is something that we need to be mindful of. It's a very real concern.
Congresswoman, I also saw you talking about the birth rate, and that is also a concern to you, that women are just not having babies as we would need to in order to sustain our population.
It is true. I mean, you look at China today, they actually have been making moves after they adopted a really ridiculous policy, a dangerous policy, the one child only policy. Now they're trying to reverse that and incentivize people to have families. And I think here in the United States, we are seeing a decline of our birth rate for a number of different reasons. There's been an assault, an attack on the family unit as we know it, and people have been incentivized to do anything but have children. As a new mom, I can speak to how incredibly wonderful the experience of having a child is. But when you're looking at the affordability crisis that we're facing, a lot of families are saying, maybe this isn't such a good idea. It's really, really tough when you're trying to make rent, pay your mortgage, put groceries on the table, and then, of course, childcare. The costs are just astronomical. And so I think we have a real big job ahead of us in terms of making America affordable again, but also really talking about how important it is, the family unit, which ultimately is the cornerstone of communities that make up our great country.
Congresswoman Kat Cammack on Good Day Orlando earlier today. I also want to play for you when we heard just yesterday from Congressman Mike Herodopoulos, Republican from Florida's 8th District. He was chairing the U.S. House Subcommittee on Space and Aeronautics meeting as they held a hearing looking at essentially the new space race with China, some of the implications of China's goals of being the leader when it comes to space, and also looking at some of the risks of the U.S. ceding its role as leader in space exploration, specifically when it comes to missions to the moon. I know yesterday we listened to a little bit of Congressman Herodopoulos' initial remarks, but I want to play for you some of his exchange with the witnesses as he had the chance to ask some questions.
Mr. Chang, if we would, there's been a lot of discussion about schedules and the idea that the United States and China, of course, are in this race not only to the moon but beyond. But there's also been this unique conversation, like each one of you brought it up, in the sense that China seems to stay on schedule a little better than the United States at this point, despite, as I think everyone in this room knows, we put an additional $10 billion into NASA during the bill that we passed in July. That said, what allows China to stay on schedule, and what can we learn from their, at this point, success in staying on schedule?
Mr. Chair, I think that one of the ironies here is that the very authoritarianism that is a hallmark of the Chinese system does grant certain benefits, one of which is the ability to coerce a workforce, overall government, but two, because the CCP has set a target, whether it is to put a man in orbit or to put Chinese boots on the moon, that is then translated to programmatic imperatives across the bureaucracy, which is not to say that there aren't bureaucratic resistance centers within the system, but when it is high profile, when it is Xi Jinping or his predecessor Hu Jintao or his predecessor Jiang Zemin who says, you will make this happen, woe betide the bureaucracy that chooses to fight it. Alongside that is an economic structure that allows 5-year plans, which allows, again, the budgetary stability. If it is in the 5-year plan, it is bureaucratically approved. Everyone is going to go along with this. And conversely, the budget and therefore the staffing is stable for at least 5 years. That is an enormous benefit with regards to I've set a target, we are funding it. There will not be cuts because of a new Congress, a new president, a new legislature, a new director, and do not get in the way, not of these sorts of programs.
And Mr. Swope, to build on that idea, you'd mentioned it in your comments, There are relationships within China between their main space agency and, as you put it, competitors within China. What are they doing differently in China with their, quote, private sector, whatever you can say about a communist system with a private sector, that they're doing that we could maybe improve upon and learn from?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think the ranking member mentioned quasi-commercial space. That is how I think we should view it. It may be financed partly by private sector money, but in addition to money from the central government, it also has money from provinces and local municipalities. But one thing that I think we should think about with regards to how China operates, and I look at the quote on the wall here, where there is no vision, the people perish, from Proverbs. I think a lot of what Mr. Cheng said, too, is true here. When you have the ability to kind of march in the same direction for such an extended period of time, you're going to achieve things that you wouldn't if you had more uncertainty. But I think what they're missing out, though, is the free molecules that we have in our system, where it does encourage innovation. You're not constraining the innovation to a certain goal. That is a benefit to the United States that the PRC just does not have structurally in their system. So I don't know if we should necessarily want to replicate how they approach that, how they approach that top-down approach to the commercial, the quasi-commercial sector. I think our free market principles-based approach, where you do have that chance for innovation and new ideas to percolate up through the ether, that's the best way to do it. I don't think we should try to alter the way that we innovate.
And the question, Mr. Chang, again, if I could, there's a lot of conversation about the Belt and Road that the Chinese have used across the world to, and I think, manipulate countries with debt issues along the line. What should we be fearful of as far as moving forward as they try to do much the same with space?
Ironically, one aspect that we should be very worried about is the application of space technology to Chinese Belt and Road Initiative investments here on Earth. When the Chinese build a pipeline, a cell phone network, a telecommunication structure on Earth, timing signals are essential. And if the Chinese are funding it, one should not expect that those investments across the world in key areas, in key countries, in key regions for key resources are going to use GPS rather than Beidou. And that means that these countries are, in a sense, potentially signing up, without perhaps even realizing it, a structural vulnerability to create a structural dependence that will far outlast whoever is in the presidential palace or in the parliament leading their respective governments.
Thank you so much.
That was in that hearing yesterday. Give you a live look along Florida Space Coast from our Launch Credit Union camera. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
State Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ngolia continues his tour across the state, conducting his FAFO audits. You may know FAFO as something that stands for something else, but they like to call it the Florida Agency for Fiscal Oversight, and this is one of the efforts that the CFO, since he has taken office, has really taken seriously, going around the state, looking at spending of local governments all across the state, and calling out what they believe to be excessive and wasteful spending. Yesterday evening, the CFO was in West Palm Beach, where he said he found $344 million in what they believe to be wasteful and excessive spending in Palm Beach County. Here's a little bit of what the CFO had to say about it.
Exercise took the budget and we increased it every year, accounting for inflation, the rising cost of goods. We accounted for more people moving into the area, needing more services, especially fire and police, and we come up with what the budget should have been. And then we compared it to where the budget actually was. And this is wasteful and excessive spending, because if property values would not have gone up, local governments would have not had that extra money. That means their budget would have been here. This amount of money was only spent because of the increase in property taxes. And we're going to show you what that number here is in Palm Beach County. Now, we did those calculations. We took Palm Beach County's information, we indexed it for inflation and population, and we come up with the amount of money that Palm Beach County has excessively and wastefully spent last year alone, and that is $344 million. Now, that is the biggest number that we have seen in the state of Florida so far this year. The previous was 300 and the biggest number so far in raw number. The biggest on a percentage basis was, again, ruby red. Sir, you're in the way of the camera. Sir. This is the of raw number, but the big percentage basis was Manatee County. Now, I understand that there is a new administration here, new leadership here. I understand, because I've had conversations with them, that they are, they know, and they are doing what they can, or they say they can, in order to bring this number down. All I'm going to tell you guys is I'm watching. I am watching you guys. Hopefully you guys will understand that this number cannot stand, and we are aware of this number. So I will be more than happy to help, but just know I am always on the side of the taxpayers. I am never on the side of big government. That is excessive and wasteful spending in the general fund budget, that part of the budget that funds your property taxes. So what does that mean in context? Just how large did the government grow? Put it just so we understand here. That number is the amount of dollars that you have been overtaxed because government has been overspent. Does everyone understand that, right? Now, the amount of money that their budget went up over the last 5 years during that time was around 879, under 59. Palm Beach County needs to do better. The taxpayers deserve better. That is a huge 58% increase. Now, let's put that number into context. That 58% increase, that $880,000 increase was for a population growth of 88,000 people. I don't know about you, but over $750 million to accommodate for the growth of 88,000 people, I would term as excessive and wasteful. And I want to go over this also before we start getting into these other numbers, because I know that there are going to be people in local government that is going to say, hey, show me the specific line item of waste, fraud, and abuse. I want you to show me the particulars. You know what the particular of wasteful, excessive spending is? The growth of government itself. Because if government didn't grow, it wouldn't need all that money. If it didn't need all that money, you would not have to be taxed to pay for it. Does everybody understand that? So, even if I didn't show one line item of waste, fraud, or abuse, trust me, there's a ton. But even if I didn't, it is the growth of government itself that we need to be concerned with, because that's where all the big chunk of the money is going. So that 88,000 people means that for every person that moves into this county, government, for every person that moved into this county, the government is now spending an extra $10,000 per person. For every family of 4 that is moving into this county, Palm Beach County, government is spending an extra $40,000 per family of 4. That doesn't make sense. How can your budget go up almost $900 million with only an increase of $88,000? There is only one explanation. I hate to say it, there is only one explanation. They saw all the extra money and they expanded government. They started expanding programs that probably should not have been paid by government in the first place. They started hiring people that they shouldn't have hired. They started giving out raises that they should not be given raises to. The expansion of government is what we are concerned with here. How do you spend $900 million only on 88,000 people? It does not make sense. To put this number into context, there are all cities around the state of Florida with $1,000. Their budgets are like $100 million, $150 million. But no, Palm Beach County spent almost $900 million just for the increase in population. Now, what does this mean? This means, according to our calculation, that excessive and wasteful spending of $344 million could be cut easily and not compromise services one iota. That means that Palm Beach County could have very easily cut their millage rate by 0.55 mils and offered property tax relief to its citizens, and not just the general fund portion of the budget that had nothing to do with the school tax portion of the budget. Don't get me started on school taxes and the wasteful excessive spending by school boards across the state. Trust me, we're working on that. But Palm Beach County could have very easily cut their millage rate by 0.55, not even worried about property funding services. So what does that mean? That means if you own a home in Palm Beach County and your assessed value, your taxable value was $600,000, you would save just on the general fund portion of your budget $331 a year. If you had a home with the taxable value of $700,000, you would have saved $386 a year. If you had a home with the taxable value of $800,000, you would have saved $441 a year. That is real money back in the hands of taxpayers, not in the hands of bureaucrats who have proven that they're going to take your money and wastefully and excessively spend it to the point where you have to go and vote on a constitutional amendment to stop them from spending. And here's another thing. There's only one way you are going to be able to stop local governments from spending your money and wasting it, and that is you guys. A constitutional amendment on the ballot offering property tax relief. Local governments are not going to downsize their right, not going to fix their budgets unless they are acted upon by an outside force. You guys, the taxpayers, are that voice, and it is going to be up to you guys to let your voices be heard in November 2026 when you say, no, we are not going to stand for this level of spending anymore. So, all total, so far now, for 11 local budgets, so far, 11 local budgets, our office, we have exposed $1.9 billion in wasteful and excessive spending just this year alone. We might hit $2 billion by the end of the year. $2 billion that should have never been taxed in the first place. $2 billion that belong in the pockets and the bank accounts of the citizens, not bureaucrats. Now, because I know local government is going to say, well, we have first responders that we have to take care of. And I will tell you, first responders are near and dear to my heart. I am the state fire marshal. I want to make sure that our first responders, our law enforcement, our fire and EMS have the resources that they need. Almost every local government that I have done these audits on, and I've exposed this wasteful and excessive spending, have come back to me and say, yeah, but the sheriff's budget. Yeah, but the sheriff's budget, right? Not so fast, my friends, as the great Lee Corso would say. If you take the sheriff's budget by itself and do the same calculations as we do, indexing forward for inflation plus population to find out where the budget should be, the same calculations we did, the sheriff's budget is $11 million under what it should have been. So the sheriff here in Palm Beach County is making the general fund budget look better, believe it or not. I'm sure my friends in the media are probably going to say, hey, how can I get to the PIO of the sheriff's office right now when Goli is saying some great things about the sheriff's budget? And I am. They have held the budget not only in check, but they've actually been very fiscally responsible with their budgets.
That was just part of what the CFO Blaise Ngolia had to say yesterday when he was in Palm Beach County talking about spending there. And we should note that those FAFO audits are a little bit different than the governor's Doge audits. These aren't looking at specific items of spending that they believe should not be there. It's actually looking at forecasts and projections, I guess would be the better word, and kind of looking at the modeling of the spending and where they believe the levels should be given the population growth and that kind of thing. So not specific instances of excessive or wasteful spending, but looking at the overall kind of big picture level. We are going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, 1:30 in the afternoon here. You may be like us and counting down toward the weekend here. And as we talked about earlier in our community crossroads, a lot of fun holiday events going on. And the holiday season can be an exciting one, a fun one, but it can also be a lonely time for a lot of people, including many seniors who may be living alone at home. Maybe you have a family member who is doing that right now. The U.S. Senate Special Committee on Aging held a hearing earlier this week, specifically looking at folks who are aging in place, as they call it, living at home, often isolated. And they talked about how the holiday season especially can be an especially lonely and isolating time for seniors who are living alone at home. And so this committee, which is actually chaired by Florida's Senator Rick Scott, looked at how families, community networks, churches, other organizations can help older adults during this holiday season, specifically with that isolation and that loneliness. So you're going to hear from Senator Scott. You're also going to hear from John Overdahl, who is the president of a foundation out of Oakland Park, which is in Broward County in South Florida. And they talk a little bit about some of the work that their group does, especially around the holidays, to help with this. So this was a hearing that happened earlier this week on Capitol Hill.
Today's hearing is meant to bring attention to an incredibly important issue for so many of America's seniors, especially as we move into the holiday season. We're here to focus on how to best serve older Americans who want to spend their senior years in the comfort of their own homes. And while there are so many positives about aging in place that we'll highlight today, we're also here to shine a light on the often unreported crisis of isolation and loneliness. We should be doing everything possible to support seniors who strive to age in place, and today we'll focus on how Congress can reauthorize the Older Americans Act, known as the OAA, to continue many critical programs that support seniors with this goal. Last week, we all celebrated Thanksgiving, and later this month, families across America will be celebrating Hanukkah and Christmas. For many of us, that means spending time with family and loved ones. In my case, I got to help my 5-year-old granddaughter win in Uno. She loved giving away +4s to people, and I learned 2/3 of how to do a Rubik's Cube, because that's my 12-year-old grandson does.
Wow.
Yeah. So he told me that the last part was the hardest. While these moments are a time to cherish time with loved ones, they can also be a difficult reminder of loss for older Americans who no longer have the ability to spend the holidays with their friends, spouse, or even their children. We all know the importance of taking care of our seniors. For many older Americans who choose to age in place, our goal should always be to help them have the best possible care and support. They should always have the opportunity to remain in the homes and neighborhoods they love. That is why community, strong families, faith-based organizations, volunteers, OAA programs are so important to our aging population, especially during this time of year. In my home state of Florida, which is quite a bit warmer than it is here, there are many seniors who cannot travel during the holiday season. Thankfully, many communities have the resources to give our seniors the care and attention they deserve. Combating the feeling of isolation and loneliness for our aging community has endless benefits, from better mental and physical health to stronger multi-generational relationships with families and communities, supporting healthier and more resilient communities. We can all agree that community matters. Strong families, faith-based organizations, volunteers, and the programs supported by the OAA create the foundation that allows older Americans to choose who choose to age in place to remain in the homes and neighborhoods they love. That's why supporting the successful programs made possible by the OAA and showing how faith-based groups, nonprofits, and service organizations strengthen families is so important to the work of this committee. During the holidays, when both loneliness and the demand for caregiving rise, these supports become even more critical. Aging in place is good for families, communities, and taxpayers. Strengthening these programs is a bipartisan commitment to dignity, independence, and the American way of life. For 60 years, the OAA has helped innumerable seniors by promoting social connection and life-affirming support programs. Over 10 million older Americans a year are helped by programs covered by the OAA. The OAA continues to serve as the backbone of many assistance programs that help ensure older Americans can age in place with dignity. I'm proud to work with Ranking Member Gillibrand, as well as Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee Chairman Cassidy and Ranking Member Sanders to fight for the reauthorization of this important piece of legislation, which is a critical tool in our arsenal to support seniors. I'm also working with fellow committee member Senator Warnock on legislation to address senior loneliness through Older American Act funding. My Senior Act expands the scope of grants to include services that address the loneliness epidemic facing seniors. And I'm working to pass bipartisan legislation to create a non-refundable tax credit aimed at adults who provide certain care for their parents or older relatives in multi-generational households. My hope is that with this hearing, we can examine how strong community networks help older adults age in place, especially during the holiday season when isolation, caregiver stress, and multi-generational pressures peak. I'd like to welcome our witnesses, all of whom work to ensure aging Americans and seniors with disabilities age in place, especially during the holidays, to ensure they remain safe and engaged. First, I'd like to introduce John Offerdale. John, who proudly hails from the great state of Florida, is the president of Offerdale's Hand Off Foundation. In 2012, Mr. Offerdale established the Offerdale Hand Off Foundation. His organization's mission is to, quote, feed the needs of those in crisis, in partnership with business, government, civic, and faith-based organizations. When the COVID pandemic hit our nation, Mr. Offerdale saw a need and stepped up in a big way to serve seniors in Broward County. Mr. Offerdale, please, thanks for being here. Please begin your testimony.
Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Gillibrand, and members of the committee, it is an honor to speak with you today about an issue affecting millions of older Americans, ensuring that seniors can age in place with dignity, safety, independence, and meaningful human connection. As mentioned, my name is John Offerdale, and I am the Hand Off Meals for Seniors president. We are an Older American Act, home-delivered meals service provider in Broward County. I've been a resident of Broward County since 1986 when Coach Shula drafted me as a Miami Dolphin. I went on to spend my entire 8-year NFL career in South Florida. Since then, my wife and I have owned restaurants and been involved in charitable works, including our own Offerdale's Hand Off Foundation. So how does an NFL linebacker become a provider of senior meals? Hand Off Meals was born during COVID when Miami Dolphin owner Stephen Ross reached out to Dolphin alumni, who are also restaurateurs, to produce and deliver emergency meals in the neighborhoods surrounding Hard Rock Stadium. With additional support from generous partners, we delivered more than 1 million meals across Broward County, many for homebound seniors. In the years that followed, emergency COVID funding through the Area Agency on Aging of Broward County and the Florida Department of Elder Affairs allowed us to continue this work. By 2023, our team had delivered hundreds of thousands of fresh, restaurant-quality meals to vulnerable seniors and families who needed them most. The success of these efforts led the Broward AAA, under the leadership of CEO Charlotte Mather Taylor, to rethink a new model for its home-delivered meals program. For the first time, rather than awarding one contract to the lowest cost frozen meal provider, our program, Hand Off Meals, was one of 4 contracts awarded after a competitive bidding process. Today, Hand Off Meals for Seniors is the leading meal provider in Broward County, delivering more than 4,500 fresh, restaurant-quality, home-delivered meals every week. Now, this is why I'm here today. I want to emphasize why the improvements in this model matter. Broward County reflects the future of our nation. Florida has one of the highest concentrations of seniors in America, and Broward's population of adults over 85 is projected to increase by 169% over the next 25 years. The choice between aging in the home or entering institutional care often hinges on improvements unleashed by competition. Here are 4 improvements we have driven so far in Broward County. 1, competition among providers promotes better quality, better services, and outcomes. Providers like us are food-centric, not large institutional frozen meal brokers. Most meals we deliver include fresh salads, sandwiches, fruits, vegetables, versus institutional frozen meals. While fresh ingredients and real-time production are more expensive, local production in scattered restaurants across Broward County creates a decentralized pickup points that make the system efficient and sustainable. 2, competition among providers inspires innovation and efficiencies that lower costs. Providers can leverage a restaurant's purchasing power, fixed costs, and community commitment to provide high-quality meals at a sustainable rate, discounting profits in service of the community-oriented mission. 3, competition among providers invigorates public-private partnerships. Funding partnerships have expanded, supported by organizations like the Jim Moran Foundation, Community Foundation of Broward, Miami Dolphins Foundations, public charities, Walgreens, to help cover the gap between public funds and the elevated cost of quality restaurant fresh meals. And 4th, competition among providers gives seniors more choice. Seniors retain personal agency over their choice of meals, delivery, relationships, and aging in place decisions. So in conclusion, this is the kind of improvement we all hope to see from our government programs: better outcomes, lower costs, invigorated partnerships, and more choice. Competition among home-delivered meal providers is good for the body and soul of our aging in place seniors. At every level, this work is a public-private partnership, and the Older American Act is the backbone of the team. As Coach Shula taught us, in life as in football, it takes a team. So Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Gillibrand, and members of the committee, the Handoff Meals for Seniors program demonstrates what becomes possible when fresh, high-quality nutrition is paired with consistent human connection and allowed to compete for the hunger and heart of our seniors. I invite every member of this committee to visit us in Broward County, meet our volunteers, talk with our seniors, and join my wife Lynn and me on one of our weekly meal deliveries. I truly believe you will be inspired. Thank you.
And so that was from earlier this week, a group from Broward County joining the senator from Florida for that hearing. Right now, we're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I want to get you now to this CDC meeting going on in Atlanta. It's a meeting of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. This is a CDC vaccine panel that has, or as we reported earlier today, lifted the hepatitis B vaccine mandate for newborns. And they're having some discussion about vaccine mandates and the use and whether they should continue, and a number of different interesting topics about that. So let's go ahead and listen in live to this meeting following the news that the CDC panel has lifted the hepatitis B vaccine mandate for newborns today.
As effectively to your comments as Paul Offit could. But I can say a few things. There's just so much to say. It's hard to know. First of all, you began with slides that showed the increase in the number of vaccines that have been administered. What was your point? I mean, that is a phenomenal accomplishment. That's why we have the lowest rates of infectious disease in the United States, because we have the highest uptake of vaccines. And if vaccine uptake goes down, we're going to see an increase of these diseases, such as with hepatitis B, which I think is going to happen. Now, you clearly confuse associations. That is, there is a temporal association and a causal association. Remember, there are tens of thousands of vaccines that are administered every day. And just because there's an adverse event that occurs around the time of vaccine administration, it doesn't mean there is any causal association. And you're jumping to the conclusion that yes, there is. And that is not fair. You invoked Stanley Plotkin and Walter Orenstein, whom I know well, and that is so disingenuous. They have done more to support the vaccines and the health of children in the United States than almost anybody else. And for you to include them as skeptics is a gross distortion of the facts. Now, let me just go to a couple of points. You talked about the polio vaccine, and you said the current killed, that is the Salk vaccine that we're using now, does not prevent transmission. Well, that is correct. But why are we using the Salk vaccine instead of the Sabin vaccine? It was because the Sabin vaccine was associated with about a dozen cases of vaccine-related paralytic poliomyelitis every year. And so the decision was made to switch to the killed vaccine. You said, oh, it doesn't block transmission. Well, it doesn't block transmission, at least not very effectively. But there's a reason, because it would have been much more harm if we continued using the live vaccine. Let's go to the acellular pertussis vaccine. You said the acellular pertussis vaccine does not block transmission. That's probably true. It doesn't block it as well as the whole cell vaccine. But the reason we stopped using the whole cell vaccine is because it was associated with an increased risk of side effects that we could avoid by using a cellular vaccine. So of course it's an issue of weighing, we're going to lose the prevention of transmission, but we're going to reduce any harm and make the vaccine safer. How about the diphtheria vaccine? Well, you know, there was a recent report about from Europe that described over 500 cases of diphtheria in immigrants who had not been vaccinated. And there were, I think, 2 or 3 deaths among that cohort. Well, it goes to the point that the pathogens that cause these diseases are still around us. And if we stop vaccinating, we are going to see increases in rates of disease. So the same thing about your discussion about Prevnar. Prevnar began at 7-valent. It's now a number of additional serotypes that are included in the vaccine. That is the most wonderful, remarkable vaccine. It has had an enormous impact on public health. In fact, the public health benefits have been far greater among people who were not vaccinated, that is the adults, than it had on children who were vaccinated. Because initially it wasn't recommended for adults. Now it is recommended for adults. That's another conversation. But the implication is that the safety of this vaccine was not measured. That's outrageous. You compared it, you said that you can't do seroconversion studies as a means of evaluating vaccines. Of course you can do seroconversion studies, because if we did efficacy trials with new pneumococcal vaccines or new pertussis vaccines, it would be almost impossible because the disease has become so rare. So if there are trials that would reasonably be done, they would. You say, oh, the FDA has licensed a vaccine, and then the next day or a few days later or a few weeks later, the ACIP recommends that vaccine. Well, that's a good thing, right? We're preventing disease. All you're focusing on are these very rare, ill-defined side effects and completely ignoring the extraordinary benefit and promise that these vaccines apply to us. You're a very effective lawyer, no question. You're very smooth. You know how to present the facts that are favorable to you or to your client. That's your responsibility. That's what you're paid, I suspect very handsomely. I suspect that's what you're paid to do, to sue people. But for you to come here and make these absolutely outrageous statements about safety, I think it's a big disappointment to me, and I don't think you should have been invited. I will be completely honest. Over.
Thanks, Cody. That just to keep track of time, we now only have 8 minutes left. But Mr. Siri, a number of, I hope you're able to keep track of that.
Yeah.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and Cody, thank you for the comments. I'll just respond to them in turn. In terms of why I had a slide about the increasing number of vaccines, is because I was asked to discuss the development of the U.S. schedule, which I figured showing how many vaccines increased was part of what I would present. In terms of your comment that is, something to be marveled at, I never addressed that, but I will point out that we, in terms of developed countries in the United States, have the worst health outcomes amongst all developed countries. And so that is something to, really think about when you're thinking about overall health in this country. In terms of your claiming that you may not have the time to address all my points, I welcome a debate with you if you'd like. I will sit with you for 2 hours here in this forum or any other forum if you'd like, and we can go point by point. If you'd like to do that, I open that. I welcome that. In terms of Dr. Paul Offit, I should say I have had a back and forth with him online in writing, and it's all available. It was on Twitter first, and then moved over to Substack, so on mine, then on his. So you can feel free to see Paul Offit and I debating actually specifically about vaccine clinical trials. And I think actually it's a very telling exchange with citations instead of just verbally. And I encourage everybody in the media in particular to go look at my exchange with Dr. Paul Offit and look at every single cited reference that he cites and what I cite. In terms of Dr. Plotkin and Dr. Orenstein, I was citing their article. I'm sorry you take offense to that. But that just is what it is. And obviously, if Dr. Plotkin and I have spent 9 hours together in a deposition, you can watch all of that if you'd like. In terms of IPV not preventing transmission, yes, I certainly understand the switch over from OPV to IPV. And it was good that that OPV caused paralysis was recognized, but I would say that there's a number of vaccines today that also cause paralysis via transverse myelitis, Guillain-Barré syndrome. I have clients whose children are in a wheelchair today from vaccines. I don't think that those folks are considered ill-defined or rare, and that's exactly the point I was trying to make earlier. Treating those folks like they don't exist, Dr. Meisner, is what is going to breed vaccine hesitancy. They're there, they exist, just like they happen for OPV. It just took a long time for folks to accept that. In terms of DTP vaccine, I would say that most of the circles in the medical community in America still don't admit that that vaccine was really problematic, though it's nice to hear you slightly admit that on right now. In terms of diphtheria, the point is that there are environmental factors that impact diphtheria, in particular its pathogenicity. And so those, for example, those immigrants you discussed who have diphtheria, when you look at the underlying science, when the studies around this, certain living conditions create an environment where diphtheria can be more harmful and cause disease, where it doesn't seem to be the case when those environmental factors are absent. I never said, by the way, stop vaccinating. I don't know why you're saying I said that or reflecting that I did. I think this is America. I agree with you. Everybody should be free to get as many vaccines as they want. I support everybody's right to get as many vaccines as they want. That's freedom. And the same token, everybody should be free without any coercion or penalty to refuse a vaccine. In terms of saying that it's ridiculous to claim that PCV was not.
So this CDC panel discussion continuing after advisors this morning announced they are recommending removing the hepatitis B vaccine mandate for newborns. And a little bit of a bigger picture discussion here this afternoon as this meeting continues live at the CDC headquarters, I believe, which is in Atlanta. We are going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. We will be back at the top of the hour for Florida Live. No TV audience today. So if you were planning on watching on the TV side because of the FIFA special going on right now on Fox, but we will have more live streaming coverage, so keep it right here on Fox. for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We appreciate you joining us. We've been live streaming for the past 3 hours here on Fox Local Orlando, and we appreciate you joining us. Obviously, the big story today is some new details that we have learned in the investigation into the death of Anna Kepner, the 18-year-old Titusville teenager who was found dead on board a Carnival cruise ship. There was a hearing this morning in Brevard County for the unrelated custody case in the dispute between Anna Kepner's stepmother and her ex-husband. So this is, again, an unrelated custody dispute, but the reason that we have heard some details about the death investigation through this is because it involves the 16-year-old stepbrother of Anna Kepner, who is believed to be the main and perhaps only suspect in this case. So the FBI has been quiet for a month now, nearly a month now, after this case kind of came to light, but we have been continuing to learn more details about her death through court filings and now through a court hearing today in this case. New details from court documents this week that we have obtained showing that Anna Kepner's cause of death believed to be asphyxiation, and that her body was found underneath a bed in the room on board that cruise ship. So some new disturbing details that we have learned just in the past 24 hours as those more court documents in that family court case have come to light. Now, Fox 35's Esther Bauer was inside the courtroom earlier today in Brevard County as that the custody dispute played out. Attorneys asking for an emergency motion to remove one of the other children from that previous marriage out of the home of Anna Kepner's stepmother because of concern about that 16-year-old stepbrother who is the suspect. Now, the judge ended up denying that motion, saying there's no emergency at this time because that stepbrother no longer staying at that home. But Fox 35's Esther Bauer joined me earlier on Fox 35 News Plus to talk more about this case, what we learned in court, and what she saw in and out of the courtroom.
So the hearing did not last very long. This started just after 9 a.m. and everything was wrapped up around 10:30, 10:45. We can say this was a win for Anna's stepmom, Chantel, because what her ex was trying to say is all these circumstances that happened on this cruise where 18-year-old Anna Kepner was found dead. Now her 16-year-old stepbrother is being investigated as a suspect in her murder. All this happened under mom's watch. So he was trying to get the other younger children out of the care of his mom. Now, a judge ultimately shot that down. These minor children will not be leaving their home in Titusville. So that's kind of why we were here. What was this custody hearing supposed to be about? But through all this and them trying to build their cases, we've now learned some more details about what was going on that cruise. So some pertinent points that we haven't known until just a few hours prior is that the parents did not see Anna. The last time they saw her was Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And we are told around 7 p.m. was the final time they saw the 16-year-old stepbrother. So 6:30 for Anna, just a half an hour later, that was the final time Anna's stepmom, Chantel, said while in court she saw both of those kids. Keep in mind, Anna was found the following day, the entire night hour, and then 11 a.m. is when that medical call came out. Anna was pronounced dead on the cruise ship 11/17. So we're getting just some more details of when were the children last seen by their parents. Also, there was conversation of what was the sleeping situation? Where were parents? Where were kids? The mother said that who they were booking this cruise with, their travel rep, suggested to them that they do the separate rooms. Mom and dad were staying, hallway was right here. All the three kids were staying in the room directly across from them. We confirmed ages, 18, 16, 14. 18-year-old was Anna. 16-year-old is the stepbrother that is currently being investigated for this alleged murder. 14-year-old was another child. And again, these are step siblings that were staying in that same room at the same time. The mother said during her time speaking to a judge that these kids did not have access to drinking. However, another witness was called. This was a stepmother of Chantel, who said that she did see Chantel serving underage children liquor in an earlier time frame. So that was brought up, but again, Chantel immediately and has said from the beginning the kids were not drinking on this cruise. So those were some really big takeaways from what we learned. The family did leave the courthouse just a few minutes ago. We tried to ask them, I should say, how will they get justice for Anna? Do they know what happened on that cruise ship? The family had sunglasses on, both the ex-husband's side and Chantel and her current husband, which is Anna's dad, left without saying a word. So everyone has since departed from the courtroom. Something else we learned, which we've reported on, and early on in this, one of the first confirmations we had about Anna dying back in November was from her school, that Temple Christian school. We learned today during the court hearing the other minor children that were attending that school were unenrolled by the school. The school ultimately told the family there was too much media surrounding what had happened on that cruise ship. So they are now putting their other minor children in other school because the Christian school where Anna was attending and all the kids were going, told them they can no longer attend that school. So a lot of new developments. Again, this didn't go in the biological dad's favor. And again, this would be the biological dad of the suspect being investigated by the FBI because he wanted his other minor daughter to be immediately put in his hands, in his care. But we're also hearing mother testified that the 16-year-old stepbrother who's under investigation will not be allowed back into their home going forward. Her and Anna's dad, Chris, and there is no timeline. Again, no one's been arrested. No one's been charged for this. But she also did say at this time and going forward, they are not welcoming that child back into their home. That child is staying with a relative of the mom. And as we learned, the FBI has not told them when they would move forward, where things are and what they're looking into. So for the foreseeable future, this 16-year-old stepbrother of Anna will be staying somewhere else and will not be welcomed back into his parents' home, at least his mother's home, going forward.
Esther, when we spoke yesterday, we talked about the subpoena for Christopher Kepner, who is Anna's biological father, and you outlined the difficulties of the process server trying to get that subpoena to him. We talked about some of the questions of whether he might show up, whether he might be called to testify. Was he there today?
Christopher was there. Anna's dad was there. He walked hand in hand in with his wife. Chantel. He was in court, but he was not called to the stand. The judge only allowed 3 witnesses from the ex-husband's side to speak. She ultimately said, I have heard enough. This does not rise to this. This does not rise to the fact where we need to immediately pull the other minor children out. But Anna's dad, Chris, was in court, did not have to speak, and also didn't say anything when he left with his wife.
It looked like there were quite a few people inside the courtroom. What was the scene like in there in the gallery?
So we do know that they had to move it to a larger courtroom because they were prepping for what was going to be a large turnout of media and other people that were going to be. The courtroom was not full, but what they did do is they wanted to bar any witnesses. There were several witnesses that were called, someone from DCF, someone from the Christian school, 2 people from the Christian school that we didn't hear from. All the witnesses were told to leave when every witness was called in. Both sides did not want other witnesses to hear what the other people were saying. So because of that, the courtroom was even more bare. There was a decent amount of media, but the courtroom was by no way full.
So that was our conversation with Fox 35's Esther Bauer. After leaving the courtroom, we did earlier today play some of the testimony that we heard from inside the courtroom. That was in our noon hour on Fox 35 News Plus. If you missed that or if you'd like to see it, you can find that right now on fox35orlando.com and on YouTube. We did have a legal analyst joining us as well to dive deep into some of the topics and issues that we heard discussed as well. We are going to take a break right now here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon. Time now for our Tampa Connection, where we take a look at some of the big stories in the Bay Area today. For that, we go to Fox 13 senior content producer Nancy Gay, who joins us live now from the Fox 13 Tampa Bay newsroom. And Nancy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Garrett. Well, a Ruskin man has been arrested for the 1997 murders of a young mother and her daughter whose bodies were found decades ago on Long Island. Now, their bodies were once believed to be connected to the Giglio Beach serial killer, and that's only because of where they were found. But on Wednesday, 68-year-old Andrew Dykes was arrested in connection with their murders. Now, in April, homicide detectives announced that DNA testing identified the partial remains of a woman discovered in 1997 as 26-year-old Tanya Jackson. She was a United States Army veteran and a single mother. Now, that same DNA testing confirmed that Jackson was the mother of a 2-year-old girl whose remains were discovered in 2011 near Giglio Beach. That child was identified as Tatiana Dykes. Now, Nassau County detectives believe both Tanya Jackson and Tatiana Dykes were murdered around the same time in 1997. Investigators have not publicly detailed how Andrew Dykes is believed to be connected to them, although Tatiana appears to share his last name. It's also unclear what evidence beyond DNA has linked Dykes to this case at this point. Now, because Tatiana Dykes' remains were discovered near Giglio Beach, the same area where multiple victims linked to suspected serial killer Rex Howerman were found, investigators long suspected that Tanya Jackson and her daughter may be connected to a larger homicide investigation. Now, detectives say the close proximity of the two crime scenes raised concerns early on, but it took decades of advances in DNA technology to identify the victims and to move this case forward. Andrew Dykes made his first appearance in a Hillsborough County courtroom on Thursday, and during that hearing, he signed a transfer agreement, and he is expected to be extradited to New York to face those murder charges. Garrett?
All right. Wow. A lot going on with that case. Certainly interesting that it has come together after all these years.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting how, how DNA technology now obviously is so different than it was back in the late 90s or even, several decades ago. So they were able to connect Andrew Dykes to the murder of this woman as well as this young girl who does happen to share his last name, although they are not elaborating on what led them to Dykes or what took so long to link this crime to him. And again, they did think that this was part of a serial killer investigation, but now they are linking the murder of this mother and the young child to Andrew Dykes, who was living down in Ruskin.
All right, interesting. Interesting stuff there. Also interesting getting some new details about this high-profile sneaker heist. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. These brazen burglars, originally, they were busted. They broke into a mall, the Treasure Coast Mall, down in Martin County. They actually cut a large hole in the roof, went inside the mall, and they stole hundreds of pairs of designer sneakers. Now, 4 Tampa men have been arrested in connection with this heist, and detectives believe that they are part of a $1 million shoe theft ring that actually spans multiple states. Now, in October, detectives said that those suspects, as I mentioned, they cut their way through the concrete roof of the Treasure Coast Mall, dropping into the Champs sporting goods store and stealing hundreds of pairs of Nike shoes. And that stolen merchandise was bagged, tagged, and thrown off the roof and loaded into a getaway vehicle. And shortly after that October crime was discovered, the Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Division identified the group, these 4 men, and they began tracking their movements. Detectives conducted surveillance as the suspects attempted additional crimes, and they ultimately got evidence linking them to as many as a dozen rooftop burglaries across Florida and up into Georgia. Now, the Tampa men, Herbert L. Davis III, Michael McCrae, Jamil Rayford, and Tyrone Howard have all been charged in the heist. Now, these 4 men, they were actually arrested outside of a mall in Volusia County. Authorities said that they had already cut a huge hole in a roof of a mall up there, and they were actually sitting inside their car doing surveillance when they were arrested. The sheriff of Martin County said the suspects were not reckless while committing the burglaries. He said that they spent a lot of time during counter surveillance and were actually very cautious during their crimes. And shortly before they were arrested, again, they were sitting in a car outside of this mall in Volusia County. They were actually in that car watching to see if there was anybody around, including security. Now, keep in mind, they were in this car after they had already cut a huge hole in the roof of that mall. The sheriff said that the suspects understand how security works and how law enforcement works, and they use that knowledge to their advantage. He said while they were not reckless while committing the crimes, he said that they did get reckless after the crimes, and that's what ultimately led to their arrest. Now, he said after that Treasure Coast Mall was hit, detectives tracked down the suspect by finding surveillance video of a rented van from the Home Depot. They looked at cameras throughout the area, not just at the mall, but in the surrounding areas as well, and they were able to see that van stop at the mall, and then it also stopped at a Wawa gas station where the suspects went inside and they bought energy drinks. And that ultimately led detectives to track these men to Tampa. Now, once they tracked them to Tampa, detectives kept tabs on the suspects, and they saw them go up into Georgia, where they are believed to have hit up a mall in Albany. And then they also tracked them to Volusia County, where they were ultimately arrested. However, the sheriff of Martin County, he believes they may have hit malls as far west as Mississippi. He said that more arrests are likely, and these suspects will also be facing more charges in the future. Now, the sheriff did mention that detectives, they don't know what they stole hundreds of pairs of shoes, not just from the stores at the Treasure Coast Mall, but also from malls throughout the state of Florida, up into Georgia and Mississippi. The sheriff believes that these shoes were taken back to the Tampa area, but once they were brought back to Tampa, Garrett, he says he has no idea what happened to these shoes.
Crazy, the lengths, well, I guess heights that these burglars went to do all that. Wild stuff, and wild seeing some of those rooftop aerial photos.
Yeah, it is absolutely wild. And keep in mind that the roofs on the mall, they are huge. They're the size of several football fields. And so they actually rented some type of concrete cutting machine, again, I believe it was from the Home Depot, according to the Martin County Sheriff, and they got up on that roof. They were cutting these huge holes in the roofs of these malls, and then they were doing all this counter surveillance just to watch to see, did anybody see them up on the roof? Where are the security guards? Did any alarms trip? And then they were going inside the hole that they made. And as far as the Treasure Coast Mall, apparently they spent hours inside of that mall. Again, they hit up the Champs sporting goods store, stole hundreds of pairs of shoes. And the sheriff down there, he's not sure what the worth was of all the shoes, not just at the Treasure Coast Mall, but at all the malls. But he believes it was probably about $80,000 just in the shoes that they stole. But he said that they caused about $1 million worth of damage because, again, they were cutting holes in the roof of these malls.
Yeah, I believe it. And finally, a scam warning.
Yes, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office is warning people of QR code scammers. They're saying that people are going to parking lots and they're actually making stickers of QR codes, fake QR codes, and putting them up where you would normally use the QR code to pay for parking. Now, we've all seen these QR codes at these parking lots. Again, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office is warning that these fake codes are being stuck on top of the real codes, and it's a way for scammers to try to get your money. Now, the fake codes take you to a site where the scammers steal your information as well as your money. We did speak with a woman who said she was scammed, and she said about a minute after she scanned that QR code to pay for parking, her phone started beeping, and it was beeping because she was getting all sorts of notifications from her credit cards telling her that fraud had been detected on her account. She said she had scanned the QR code on the meter, but it was actually a fake sticker that a scammer had put over the real code. The scammer got all of her credit card information. And so the sheriff's office says it is really important to make sure that a QR code is not a sticker. Make sure it is actually on the parking on those signs and it is not a sticker that's been attached to it. And if you do use the QR code, make sure the site you're going to is the correct site. Look for things like typos, bad design, or faulty grammar, because if you notice any of those things, it's probably not the correct site. Now, authorities said for parking meters, you're better off finding the app in your phone's mobile app store than using that QR code to pay for your parking. And as for the woman we talked to who said she got scammed, she said she will be paying for parking the old-fashioned way from now on, using her change. Garrett.
All right, probably good advice. You can't be too careful these days. It's crazy. Fox 13 senior content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection.
Thank you.
Time now for our Florida Live forecast. We've got Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Laurel Blanchard joining us here live. And Laurel, it's going to be a fun weekend with so many holiday events around the Orlando area, and a lot going on. And crossing our fingers that weather cooperates.
I'm hoping. Either way, I'm looking to get into the holiday spirit, and there's a whole bunch of holiday events happening across the region just starting tonight. So if you're looking for some maybe bubbly precipitation, maybe some fake snow, here's what you got looking at for the rest of the evening. So Lake Eola Christmas tree lighting, that is happening tonight at 5:30 p.m., lasting all the way until 9:30 p.m. And I heard every 45 minutes or so, Garrett, there's going to be a whole display of Christmas trees kind of being synchronized to music. So that's going to be something that's very fun. Yeah, right?
Yeah, sounds like a good time.
It's going to be a party down there at Lake Eola tonight. So 6 p.m. all the way until 10 p.m. Seeing those temperatures slowly sink further down into the 70s. You may need a light jacket once it gets dark, but other than that, it looks beautiful. Same with Lake Mary. Lake Mary, it's going to be beautiful as well. Passing clouds, breezy. That's actually a picture that I took last year. And if you've driven by downtown Lake Mary, they've had the lights up for like 3 weeks now. So now it's going to be the official start of the holiday season. Santa's going to be there tonight. There's going to be an ice rink there tonight, not of actual ice, but like the plastic synthetic ice. But there's also going to be photo opportunities and just such a fun time. That is also going to be a total Christmas celebration with synchronized lights to music. It's going to be a great time. Again, temperatures falling down into the low 70s. For lows tonight, it's not going to be too bad. Temperatures may be bottoming out throughout the mid-60s. Here in central Florida, higher up on the I-75 corridor, lingering throughout the low and mid-60s. Down towards Tampa, even towards mid-60s as well. But really, it's the weekend that we're going to be watching very closely. So there's going to be a warm front that's already kind of pushing in some of those warmer temperatures that we've been seeing. That's what's bringing in some rain, taking a look in areas, especially in the Panhandle, Jacksonville area. So it might be a little bit on the soggy side if you live up there, but for here in central Florida, we're only seeing a couple of scattered showers up by Gainesville and Ocala tomorrow afternoon. And then once we head into Sunday, we're going to be seeing a cold front push through, and that's not only going to bring us in some much needed rain across the region, but it will also bring down our temperatures, taking a look at the start of the work week. So if you have not put away those winter sweaters yet, you may need them tomorrow to get into the festive spirit, because the Winter Park Christmas Parade is going to be happening. I will be there. I will be riding in the Thunder Truck, which will be very fun. I just bought a wreath for the front of the Thunder Truck, so we're all nice and festive. So come on down, say hi. That's going to be happening 8 a.m. all the way until 10 a.m. It's going to be fantastic. John Brown's emceeing. We're all going to be there. Come on down, say hi. Clouds and sun tomorrow. Lingering temperature is going to start off throughout the low 70s, warming up into the mid 70s. And also on Saturday, this is when we could be starting to get in a couple of scattered showers here and there, especially once we head into Saturday night and Sunday as well. If you are planning on heading to the Asian Lantern Festival, I was just there yesterday. It's beautiful. Probably one of their best years yet, and it is going to be a little bit on the rainy side, especially Saturday and Sunday later on in the day. So heads up if you are planning on any outdoor events later on Saturday night and into Sunday. So here's what we're looking at. There is a boundary kind of lacing across northern Florida, and that's what's going to kind of keep those showers up into the Panhandle, northern Florida, Georgia, as we head through the rest of the day today and through the majority of Saturday. Partly cloudy skies, maybe a scattered shower or two, but not looking at anything too crazy. It's Sunday that we're going to be expecting those showers bright and early in the morning and lasting throughout the day. And you can see right there, Garrett, some areas may be seeing a little bit more of that heavier rain, or maybe even seeing a couple of scattered showers and a thunderstorm here and there as that boundary is kind of pushing through. So Sunday, definitely maybe a better day to kind of stay inside, cuddle up in a blanket, watch some Christmas movies. I have to do some Christmas wrapping, Garrett, so that's probably what I'm going to be doing on Sunday before I come into work. But really, that's what we're going to be looking at. Not a total washout on Sunday. If you do need to do anything in the morning, things are looking good. Afternoon, evening, yeah, maybe wanting to stay inside.
I wish I could do some Christmas wrapping, but that would mean I would have more Christmas shopping done, and that's kind of where I am right now, having to do a lot of that Christmas shopping still. I think I've maybe gotten one gift so far.
I'm going to say this, and I know like about 20 minutes later, I'm going to be like, oh crap, I forgot this person. I think I'm done Christmas shopping.
Okay, well then you can help me with mine.
Okay, sounds good. I'll be a little assistant. I like it.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Laurel Blanchard, we appreciate you joining us with our Florida Live forecast.
Thanks, Garrett.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Florida Live starts now.
Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We talked about the Anna Kepner hearing today, or the hearing involved kind of tangentially connected to that case. Another hearing we've been following throughout the week, we've been giving you updates here on Florida Live, and that's the case of Tommy Ziegler, the Florida's longest serving death row inmate who has been on death row for 50 years now, and his defense attorneys are trying to get his conviction overturned after all this time, saying that some new DNA evidence and tests should exonerate him. And so we've heard a number of witnesses called the kind of the battle of the experts, as Fox 35's Matt Trezza was calling it earlier in the week. He was in the courtroom for much of that hearing. Today was closing arguments as that hearing wrapped up. And Fox 35's Marie Ettinger had the chance to speak with Ziegler's attorneys, who say they believe the hearing went very well and that they were able to lay out a great deal of new evidence for the judge. Here is those defense attorneys speaking outside the courtroom just a little bit ago.
Do you want to start? Just, how do you think the 5 days went? And I guess the more important thing is, what sense do you get is going through the mind of the judge right now?
Well, I think the evidence went in very well. I think there was a great deal of new evidence that was not known to the original jury. That's all been laid out for the judge now. Our position, and we feel very confident that it does not support the convictions and in fact shows that the convictions were based on false information. I think the state has conceded that. And therefore, we're waiting for a decision from the judge.
Yeah, Mr. Michaely, what did you think about the idea that the prosecutor said, well, if it looks like he probably murdered Charlie Mays, well then his whole story falls apart?
I don't agree. I don't think it looks like he murdered Charlie Mays. I think that there was always, Tommy Ziegler testified that there was a struggle with Charlie Mays. The evidence is entirely consistent with that. Doesn't tell us anything about whether that struggle was in self-defense or not. That's an open question. We have to look to all the other evidence in this case.
What's your read on what do you think the judge is thinking? Because she asked very specific questions while you were in closing to make sure she understood where both of you were going.
I don't know what the judge is thinking, but the judge certainly was extremely well prepared, and we're very grateful for that.
What's Tommy's attitude right now?
He's also very grateful for the time and effort that the court has put into this, and is hopeful that justice will be served.
What does justice look like for you?
Justice looks like vacating this conviction and having a new trial, which is based on the true evidence.
Unlikely that she's just going to say, pack up your things, you're out of there.
Well, we can't predict it.
You're saying that's the unlikely part of the two scenarios, I'm assuming. You don't think that she would just say, I'm throwing everything out, there is no trial, you're free, go home?
No, the relief that we've requested is to vacate the convictions.
Can she take it another step further? She's the judge.
I don't know. That's up to the judge.
Okay. Anything we haven't asked you want to add?
This particular hearing was just about the DNA evidence, new evidence, and talking about what was presented in the case in the past. Obviously, the trial had a bunch of other factors involved. It seems like none of that came into play here. Does it worry you if it were to go back to trial to have to consider those things?
No, not at all. And this hearing was the new DNA evidence. All of the other evidence that the defense has learned in all of these many, many decades since the original trial, and how that evidence affects what the jury heard almost 50 years ago.
So could it go back to trial? Could the conviction be overturned? Could we see another trial? We will have to wait and see. We also spoke outside the courtroom with Connie Crawford, who is the cousin of Tommy Ziegler, who continues to advocate for his freedom after all these years.
First of all, what do you think after 5 days?
Well, not a whole lot has changed, and then lots has changed. So, yesterday I was sort of impressed with the state's case where they were trying to say that Tommy's footprints were all over the store. Well, that had been settled in 1976 by the FBI. They had said those were not Tommy's shoes. So, just little things.
I mean, both attorneys seem convincing in their closing arguments, but I think the one thing that stood out for me, for Mr. Michaely at the end, is he says, look, if there's any doubt, it's all got to be doubted. What do you think?
I agree with that. And there is doubt. So.
What do you think the judge is going to do?
That's anybody's guess. That's anybody's guess. She was very attentive. I don't think we've ever had a judge before that listened the way she did and participated. So there's hope that she will come with the right decision.
Yeah.
What would you do if it does reach a new trial?
Pardon?
What would you do if it does reach a new trial?
Oh, well, I'll go to trial every day, you know. So, if it's granted, it'll be up to the state whether or not they want to take it back to trial. Probably they won't. It's an old case. There's new evidence to debunk their case. So, you know, to begin with, when they were talking about Tommy beating Mr. Edwards to death, Tommy has no blood of Mr. Edwards on his body. So, you know, things like that, there's more than one instance. I just can't think of it right now.
It was complicated.
Yes, it's a very complicated case. I was telling my daughter coming over this morning, you think you know what went on, and then you look again, and you don't know. You just don't know what happened. It could go many different ways. Many different people could be involved. It's just complicated.
Did you get a sense whether he feels any confidence?
Tommy always has confidence. So, and hope. As I've told people before, if you lose hope, you've lost it all. So, he's always hopeful, and he stays very involved with the case. He does some research, you know, at the prison. So, he's still in good shape mentally. So.
I guess you want to make sure there's a ruling while he's still with us.
You're right. Yeah. Or I'm still here. I'm the older one.
I hear you. Do you want to get in when we're talking? Yeah, why not? What are you going to do now? Obviously, until she makes a decision, are you going to be communicating with any other relatives about what you saw?
I communicate with relatives and friends and people Tommy knows from all over the world every night. There's 5 or 6 people to have a conversation with. But meanwhile, then maybe I'll be able to go back up and see him.
All right.
How often do you go to visit?
Pardon?
How often do you get up there to visit?
This year we haven't seen each other very much. February is the last time I saw him. He was sick in March. I came down sick in April, and it was a while for me to get over it. I've walked more around here this week than I have the whole year. So, yeah.
So that was outside the courtroom earlier today, and again, now we await a decision from the judge. And we're going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Some new technology helping first responders in St. Cloud in Osceola County. St. Cloud Police announced this week they are launching the St. Cloud PD Drone First Responder Program. It will help improve search efforts, emergency response efforts, help chases with potentially violent suspects, a number of different applications that they believe this is going to help. They held a demonstration earlier this week to show a little bit about how this works and how this has helped, how this might help. This is Chief Doug Gerke speaking with reporters.
And when we think of technology, we give the very, very best technology to our law enforcement officers to ensure that they are well prepared to deal with anything that they may encounter. For example, we have our brand new body camera 4s. We upgraded our body camera system when I first got here. We upgraded to our Taser 10s. We have a very robust public safety network of cameras under our Eustace platform that we're able to utilize license plate readers and other technology to locate offenders that might move through our city. But most importantly, as we move through this, we use virtual technology, virtual reality technology. Many of you have gone through our simulators that we use to train officers in unbearable situations and technology. So moving forward, the thing that came up was obviously we need to ensure that we are providing the utmost and best service we can possibly do. And with that, we are now launching the St. Cloud Police Department Drone First Responder Program. It is a collaboration between the St. Cloud Police Department and Skydio. There's different manufacturers out there, but Skydio seems to be the best fit for us. So imagine this: an elderly grandparent, an elderly parent, someone with dementia, someone with Alzheimer's, leaves their house for walks. We have that quite often. In St. Cloud, we do have missing people, calls for service quite a bit, that start pulling resources. Thinking about maybe someone with special needs, someone that's on the spectrum, someone with autism that leaves the house unexpectedly and now they're gone. Seconds matter. Lives are on the line. Officers start responding as quickly as we can. Think about that for a moment. Also think about a multi-vehicle car crash, something that we see down here as well, where there's multiple cars, we don't know how many victims we have, but officers are now driving to the scene. Some of that real-time information has to be relayed once we get to the scene to make an assessment and say there is multiple vehicles, we need more ambulances and rescue units. Think about an in-progress incident where offenders are now on the run, where we have to call for, whether it be canines or police helicopters. Helicopters potentially take up to 30 minutes to get in the air, 20 to 30 minutes. It takes some time. Those days are gone. They're gone. And I will tell you what the future of public safety is. Now, this is Doug Gerke talking. This is just Doug's opinion. This is going to be the future of public safety. I think utilizing this type of technology, these types of drones that can respond in a timely manner. Go back to that first incident. We think about a missing child. There is panic. There is absolute panic. People don't know where the child ran off to, or an elderly grandparent. We've had that in the past years. We found an elderly grandfather lost in the woods, stuck in the mud. We found him several hours later. When you think about that, when we can actually launch a drone from a docking station that's already set somewhere in the city, and we have one right here at the police department that you're going to get to see and interact with today. We also have one at the top of City Hall. That's 2 that we did the investment for to get started, but there's 2 more on the way. We were hoping to have them here on staff and ready to go when you got here. They're being backlogged, but they're on their way. They're bases. So when you think about that, the investment of St. Cloud to ensure the public safety is there. We are 100% invested. And I will tell you, we've already used it several times. So some of those incidents we talked about have actually worked out well for us. When I think about it's not just a police issue, it's public safety. Think about car accidents. Think about house fires. The fact that we can get a drone overhead, it takes 20 seconds to launch from our docking stations now, 20 seconds. Now you think about somebody taking one out of a case in the box, and then you have to open it up, and then you also have to do an update before it launches, and it won't launch right away. Then you have to have somebody that's standing there watching this from the field. We already have the waivers from the FAA that allow us to fly these non-line of sight. A car accident, say, 4-vehicle, 5-vehicle, multi-car accident. We can get a drone overhead within seconds. By the time it takes off 20 seconds, officers are riding, fire department's being activated. We can get overhead and share that data in real time of what's going on. I'm a paramedic as well, and I know we can call out a trauma alert very quickly based on what we see. And what is a trauma alert? A trauma is basically something, the trauma alert is you're alerting the hospital that there is significant trauma. It could be chest trauma, head trauma, and you think about that. Now we can share those live video feeds with the trauma center in real time. When you think about that, now the medical doctors that are going to be treating the very victims that are going to be coming in while the fire department's extricating them out of a vehicle, now they can actually look at it and say, wow, this is really bad. We're working on that right now with that partnership, so we have it with Osceola Regional, so they can actually start seeing our video feeds in real time. Now, you cut down on that time for life-saving efforts. They can say, get the CAT scan room ready. Let's get the surgical ward ready. This is going to be a really bad car accident coming in. That's what we're dealing with right now. So when you think about that, lost and missing children, these drones have the capability to fly, launch in 20 seconds, be on the scene for about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on, there's some variables that actually cover that. But if the drone is starting to get, the battery life is going down and we want to keep it, we can land it on the ground and do a hot swap of a battery and put it back up in the air again and keep it on station for us. There's a lot of great technology with this. We're super, super excited to have you here today. We've had some success stories already where we've had some mental health calls. We could see people putting weapons in their pockets. So we're actually giving that information to the officers before they even arrive. You think about that for de-escalation now. So now officers are getting that real-time information before they even arrive. Instead of us having to make that game time decision that we get second guessed on all the time. Now we get that real-time information saying he just put a knife in his front right pocket. We told the officers there, when the officers got there, they said, hey, do me a favor, put the knife on the ground. You see the guy taking it out and put it on the ground. My God, that's really where we are right now. It's great to have this technology. The technology is real. The technology is being used right now. And we're super, super excited to roll it out. So we've used it already. We've used it for so many successful flights in the testing phase of it that it's proven technology that assists us. And again, you think about that 20 seconds to launch out of a pod, 20 seconds to get up in the air. It takes about another 10 or 15 seconds to check all of its sensors. It does crash avoidance. It'll actually notify you when you're near something for the pilots. And then it pushes up to 200 feet and it's gone. It will fly at 35 to 40 miles an hour directly to a scene. When you think about that, you know, when we have all these spaced around the city, within seconds, we should be able to be on a scene within 60 to 90 seconds. When that's on scene, we can give real-time information, not only to the fire department. We can go to a house fire. We can actually do a 360 perimeter and look for victims and notify the fire department. So when I say this is not just a police initiative, this is truly for public safety. And I suspect we're the first ones in the region to have it, but I suspect you're going to see a lot of these coming forward. And again, 4 docks will be in the city. 1 will be here. We're going to add a second one at City Hall, so there'll be 2 of them. 2 of them will be at City Hall, so they can actually cover the entire lakefront area and all of 13th Street and all of the downtown of St. Cloud area. But then out east, we have a brand new one coming in the Narcoossee corridor. So now we'll be able to cover the Narcoossee corridor too. And I'll be honest with you, as the city grows, I'm going to be pressing, and I already have the support of City Council and our city manager. We'll be adding more of these into the areas as we grow the city. So there will always be a quick response for air support when we need it.
So pretty interesting to hear all the uses that they're going to be able to use that for. They've got the different stations throughout the area, throughout the town of St. Cloud there. So really interesting, and certainly seems like very helpful applications for first responders. We're going to take a break right now here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us. A lot of holiday events going on this weekend. We talked about some of them with Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Laurel Blanchard just a few minutes ago. Had the chance earlier to speak with a couple of our friends at UNation to talk about some of the events going on around Central Florida that you might not want to miss this weekend.
Can I be so real with you and tell you how hard it was to narrow down just 3 top events this week for you guys? Because there are truly so many things happening this weekend here in Orlando.
Yeah, and Ashley, you were saying it's pretty much like every neighborhood has their own event going on.
Oh, truly, wherever you are, there's going to be a holiday pop-up happening. I literally have a list for you guys a little bit later in this update.
All right, so let's jump right in then and start with some of our highlights. And let's start with how the market stole Christmas.
Yeah, so that's happening Sunday. So make sure you have your plans ready for Saturday, but we got you covered for Sunday also, December 7th from 12 to 5 p.m. This is a Grinch-themed market. So if you love all things Grinch and Dr. Seuss, this is the market for you. It's going to be in Kissimmee, so a little bit further out from Orlando, but if you're on that side of town, this is the perfect market. There's always something going on around Orlando, and we know that a lot of people in Orlando are big market people, so this is going to be a lot of fun. They're going to have free admission, free parking, a DJ, raffles and giveaways, a ton of vendors with, of course, Grinch-inspired things, and they're gonna have food, snacks, and a lot to do. Definitely family friendly, perfect for kids, perfect for people of all ages. And if you need to get your last minute Christmas shopping done and you want to shop local, this is going to be the perfect spot to go and get those little niche gifts.
All right, and yeah, I kind of jumped out of order here because there is a big event going on tonight in Winter Park. We're talking about Winter on the Avenue. What should people know about that?
Yeah, so Winter on the Avenue is a festive holiday tradition right here in the heart of downtown Winter Park. It's family-friendly community event that brings Park Avenue to life with all of the twinkling lights, music, and honestly just holiday cheer for the entire family. It kicks off with their annual holiday tree lighting to start the night, followed just by a variety of entertainment and other seasonal surprises. Guests, you guys can enjoy some strolling carolers down Park Avenue, performances from children's choirs, a Hanukkah menorah lighting ceremony, and also snow slides, s'mores, and of course, a visit from Santa and Mrs. Claus herself. They'll be ready for photos and all of the holiday wishes. So again, that is tonight. So, start making those plans quick. From 5 to 9 p.m., Santa will start being there at 6:30. And as you're on Winter Park, there are truly so many great things happening on Park Avenue, from restaurants and other activities. So definitely, I highly recommend a restaurant like Wine Room is one of my favorite little before an activity thing with wine on tap. But if you also have little ones, maybe don't bring them to Wine Room, maybe bring them to a place like Prado, Bosphorus. One of our favorites, Sarah Barkley can attest to this, is Ava Mediterranean for a really, really nice holiday dinner to really just tap in the entire holiday vibe while you're on Park Avenue.
Yeah, you might as well while you're there. There's a lot going on there. It's a fun place, a lot of good vibes there. I like the Wine Room as well. You could also probably knock out some holiday shopping while you're in the area.
Honestly, you really can with all the great local stores. One of my favorites does be Lululemon because it's right there on Park Avenue. I walk by every single time. But Writer's Block Bookshop is another really great locally owned indie bookstore that has a lot of really great options.
And if you're looking for something a little bit different this weekend, there's another fun event going on in the Milk District.
For any Orlandoan who is not ready to say goodbye to Halloween just quite yet, I get it. I'm right there with you. Krampus is coming to town. If you don't know about the legend of Krampus, Krampus is originally an Alpine folklore, and his whole gimmick is that he punishes misbehaving children during the Christmas season. So while Santa Claus gives gifts to the nice kids, Krampus, scares the little ones. So really talk about scaring your kids to get in line. So with that being said, this festival is really kind of horror, spooky themed. So it's a delightfully dark holiday festival, one of Orlando's biggest Krampus celebrations too, with live music, performances, a parade, and a massive market with plenty of local vendors. That just seems to be the theme of this weekend, is holiday shopping, markets, and local vendors. So we love that local love here in Orlando. Again, this is on Sunday, so it's going to be at the Plaza Live on Bumby Avenue. It is from 2 and 9 p.m. And yes, it's free to attend and family friendly. From 2 to 6, your kiddos are welcome. It's going to be lighthearted, spooky fun. But after 6 p.m., it will be 18 plus. So it's definitely getting the claws out at that time.
Sounds intense after 6 p.m., that's for sure. And in our local spotlight here, a fun Christmas holiday pop-up.
Yeah, so Mangoni Italian Market is located in downtown Winter Garden. So you can always stop by there and get some food. Downtown Winter Garden, first of all, is so stunning. They always decorate so well for Christmas. Mangoni has pizza, salads, holiday cocktails. I tried these cocktails. They are so good and they're themed after your favorite nostalgic Christmas movie. The whole thing is themed by different movies. Each corner is a different one. So it's really fun to go and see what movies they have and kind of figure it out because they drop little hints here and there. Those gingerbread garlic knots that they just showed, they're red and green. They are so good. They actually did a Halloween pop-up and we had to go back for the Christmas one. There's live music, there's great food, and it does fill up pretty fast. So I highly recommend getting reservations ahead of time. It is a popular pop-up and it's one of the newer ones to do. So if you're in that area, definitely stop by, get a cocktail, bring the kids, get a mocktail. They had a great hot chocolate for kids. And honestly, I preferred that over the cocktail. It was really good.
It looks great. I love the look of the Frosty the Snowman pizza there. Really cool stuff. You can find out more information about all those events with UNation. So a lot going on this weekend, and we appreciate them joining us to talk about that earlier today on Fox 35 News Plus. And we appreciate you joining us today on what has proved to be a very busy last 4 hours on this live stream. We'll be back on Monday with more. I hope you have a great weekend. Maybe get out, enjoy some of those tree lightings and other holiday events going on around the area. Right now, I am going to give you a live look at Daytona Beach as we wrap up our time together here on this Friday afternoon. Have a good one.